is called to order. The first item is approval of electronic participation by a school board member. Is my mic working?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Preston and Dr. Day, any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, Ms. Lowry, you can come on. Mr. Trost will not be able to join us today because of business reasons. So, Ms. Lowry, you're there?
She was.
She'll join us. Dr. Day, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Next item is agenda approval for public hearing and work session. Is there a motion to approve item D1?
Is D1 or C1?
Sorry, C1 was pledge. B1 was,
Oh, it must have, oh, that's, okay. Well, I want to move to amend the agenda.
what's your motion?
I move that we add an item G3 to discuss the Dick's Sporting Goods grant.
So your motion is to discuss the Dick's Sporting Good grants.
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Dr. Carter, discussion on that motion. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for amending the agenda?
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
So where will this go?
Ms. Lowry?
And Ms. Lowry.
Ms. Lowry.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
carries.
Where will-
H3 under the work session?
H3, so this item will become H3?
H3.
H3,
Okay.
thank you. So is there a motion to approve the agenda with amendment?
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Dr. Day,
Second.
Dr. Carter, any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowry?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Next item is public hearing, public comments, budget agenda items only. Dr. Day.
Okay, well, I'll read our usual statement of the relevant sections of the policy that concern public comment. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to the public official or employee's official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of their presentation. A group may not have more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Voicemail messages shall be played, are also limited to 3 minutes for individuals and 5 minutes for speakers representing a group. And priority will be given to in-person comments before voicemail messages in the following order: first, students; second, staff; third, parents or guardians; and fourth, community members.
Since this is item E1 and E2 together, and the hearing is for an hour. An hour, so it'll be 60 minutes.
Okay, my apologies. This is a...
So item E1 and E2
Yep.
are clubbed together, hearing and budget. I was clarifying with Dr.
So we have a full 60 minutes
60
to hear
minutes, yes.
public comments.
Thank you.
Okay. I do have one student who comes first. This is David Long.
My name is David Long, and I'm a fifth grader at Lynchburg Virtual Academy. I'm also the fifth grade student council representative. I love LVA because my classes are small, and I love being able to have a quiet place to go to school at home. In mainstream school, it is too loud and the classes are too large. I can take a test in my own pace, and I don't have to be in a hurry. This makes me feel more confident in schoolwork. I love that there are in-person events when we can still spend time with classmates. I love that I get to be part of a club. I am part of the Lego Club. Field trips and recesses days also make LVA a great school for me. I can study at home but still be able to socialize with my friends. I feel loved by my teachers, and I hope that I can always attend Lynchburg Virtual Academy until I graduate from high school. I don't want to attend any other school. Please fully fund LVA and make this a possibility for not only me but also for my classmates. We love our school. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, David. We do have one staff member signed up, Catherine McMullen.
Good evening, Dr. Edwards, Dr. Gupta, other members of the board. My name is Catherine McMullen, and I have the proud honor of serving as your lead educational interpreter. That means for the past 25 years, I've coordinated and ensured American Sign Language interpreting services have been provided for every LCS child who is deaf or hard of hearing. However, tonight, I bring a different concern to your attention, and that is continued accessibility for our LCS theater programs. I'm proud to say that for the past 15 years, both Heritage High School and EC Glass have provided a sign language interpreted performance for each of their public theater productions. This has meant that members of our local deaf community, including deaf parents of our LCS children, deaf LCS staff, and even deaf individuals from as far away as South Carolina, Maryland, and Tennessee have driven to experience the award-winning productions provided by the students at our LCS high schools. It's been amazing. And it has put LCS on the map for leading the way in public accessibility in Central Virginia. That all sounds really heartwarming too, doesn't it? I have to say though, it's more than heartwarming. It's exactly what the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Federal Rehab 504 Act says that a public school system that receives federal funds is required to do. The challenge is no funds have ever been earmarked for the provision of these interpreting accommodations, and now those costs are being pushed out to the high schools to cover with their own reduced operating budgets, which they cannot continue to do without additional funding. The LCS budget has never included a line item safeguarding the rights of deaf and hard of hearing individuals who live in Lynchburg to have public access to LCS events. As you enter deliberations on the budget for the 24-25 school year, I'm recommending the addition of a line item of $10,000. It would be $5,000 for each high school that would provide interpreting services for public theater productions at both of these schools. I'm working with the theater departments and the principals at both of these schools. Dr. Rule at EC Glass is already amending his budget submission to include this, and I'm meeting with Mr. Beatty the first week we're back in January. It's important for me to clarify to you all, these costs fall outside of special education and their budget, because we're not talking about providing accessibility for deaf LCS children in the classroom. We're talking about providing accessibility for LCS to disabled members of the community. I appreciate your time and consideration and hope you'll see funding this line item as an opportunity for LCS to not just remain in compliance with ADA, but continue to lead by demonstrating that LCS belongs to this entire community, including those who don't hear as well as you and I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the rest of the individuals who signed up to speak are parents, I believe. We'll start with Tiersha Royale.
I'm representing the Sandusky Elementary PTO. Good evening, school board members. Tonight, as you have the crucial discussions surrounding the future budget, I want to draw your attention to a significant allocation. The proposed $15 million intended for BASS, a topic that warrants careful consideration. While we typically welcome additional funds for educational endeavors, it is important to recognize that this particular allocation may not serve the best interest of LCS. BASS, much like Sandusky Elementary, boasts a distinct cultural identity within LCS. It operates as a smaller year-round school with a unique approach, including the use of uniforms to foster positive behavior and diminish peer pressure. The $15 million in question, however, comes with strings attached. It's money for 10 new classrooms, but not 10 new classrooms for BASS kids, but 10 classrooms for displaced kids. Those 10 classrooms would automatically double the size of BASS students' population overnight. Their staff will also double overnight. What happens when the staff is forced to be there? What happens when half the staff is forced to transfer there? What happens when the new population of BASS starts to fight against a year-round calendar or the school uniform policy? What happens when half the population starts to fight against the things that make BASS the special school it is? Maybe BASS will end up doing away with uniforms or the year-round calendar, completely changing their second culture and negatively affecting the BASS community. Consider an alternative approach. First, I express gratitude for facilitating a meeting with the Movement Foundation. Secondly, I propose redirecting the $15 million to the reconstruction of Sandusky Elementary. From a budgetary perspective, this decision is financially prudent. Sandusky's per student cost to the district is under $8,000, significantly below LCS's $15,000 per student average. Moreover, Sandusky has fewer behavioral issues and holds full accreditation. Supporting Sandusky aligns not only with our fiscal responsibility, but also with our commitment to quality education. Removing Sandusky Elementary from LCS would not only incur a financial cost, but could also result in the departure of more families, escalating per student costs and exacerbating the achievement gap. Therefore, the real question before us is not just the monetary value attached to the proposed $15 million, but the far-reaching consequences of neglecting the invaluable role Sandusky plays within LCS. It is a decision that transcends mere financial figures. It defines the fabric of our educational community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Colleen Larkins.
Several weeks ago, my husband and I had a date night, and we were looking for something exciting to do in Lynchburg. So, of course, we found ourselves in Heritage Elementary's cafeteria, the most exciting place to be. There, we engaged in a discussion of the Lynchburg City Comprehensive Planning Workshop. We looked at everything in the city, from traffic patterns to buildings, to where industrial buildings should go, to historic district, and what we should keep and what we should get rid of. My husband and I were the only people in attendance that had school-aged children. At the end of the workshop, we realized not a single person but us had brought up education. We went and talked to the city planners. We went and talked to the consultant running this very workshop and asked a hard question: what about our kids and what about education? Now you may wonder what in the world my date night or workshops have to do with you. Let me tell you, we, the parents of LCS, are not unaware of what is happening. We are not unaware that you didn't cause the problems you face. Unfortunately, you inherited them. Our schools have not been a priority for Lynchburg City for some time, clearly, or our schools would not be in the situation that they're in. Sandusky itself has been on the list to be rebuilt for years. So, I want to tell you, we are not merely addressing you. These advocates, these faces you see week in and week out, we aren't just talking to you. We are advocating and talking to City Council. We understand that school funding has not been a priority for our city. We've done great things in our city. We've rebuilt the Bluff Walk. We've made it a place people want to live. But if our public education fails, as you all know, we have a problem. But here's where you do come in. This leads me to my crucial point. We lack any substantial ability to advocate to City Council beyond the plea for funding. That responsibility lies with you, the school board. You have to advocate to rebuild Sandusky. You have to advocate for T.C. Miller budget. You have to do that. You've seen us here consistently. You've heard us advocate on behalf of our children, our schools, and fundamentally, LCS. We are willing and ready to extend our advocation to the city council beyond what we already have. But we implore you to make meaningful action so we can. You guys are appointed. They are elected. We are their constituents. We help vote them in or take them out. So I ask you, help us fund LCS. We are willing and able to take our advocacy to their front door, but we need your help.
Thank you. Next is Cindy Capps.
Good evening. At last week's meeting, I was told that there is a school board member who insulted those of us who are working hard to prevent the closures of T.C. Miller and Sandusky Elementary, saying that we are whining and crying, and that if the school board changed course on their previously made decisions, it would show that whining and crying gets your way. I now work as a community liaison, and I know the importance of and impact of the community's voice. Your comments show that you do not. To those insults, I say, get ready for more of what you consider of whining and crying. We will not give up our beloved school communities without turning over every stone to find the funds needed to provide what our children, families, faculty, staff, and administration deserves. That's consistency and community support. The Save Sandusky team submitted a proposal to the school board outlining a cost-effective plan to rebuild Sandusky Elementary. The Save Sandusky team has done a walkthrough of one of these affordably constructed schools built by the Movement Foundation in North Carolina, known for doing such work for many years. The Save Sandusky team gained valuable insights on these efforts after directly engaging with the leadership of the foundation. The collected information was presented to the Lynchburg City School Board, and Dr. Wodeca confirmed a scheduled meeting with the foundation. We are urging the school board to reconsider their decision to double the size of Bass Elementary and instead allocate funds to affordably rebuild Sandusky Elementary. Rebuilding Sandusky is an affordable and equitable solution for our students. It would allow us to preserve our school with its strong academic record and quality learning environment for our students. Rebuilding Sandusky would not only restore our beloved school community, but would also prevent overcrowding at other elementary schools in our districts. This responsible approach would ensure that all students have access to quality learning facilities without jeopardizing the unique character and culture of any one school. Closing Sandusky would only save the city around $700,000 per year. This will only cost the city more in the long run and will not help to achieve the goal of savings in LCS cost per student. City Council has made it clear that they want to lower the cost per student in LCS. Right now, the average cost per student in LCS is over $15,000, with Sandusky Elementary's cost per student being almost half that amount. Sandusky Elementary enrollment is not down. It did take a slight dip during COVID when school was not in session full-time, and today it is the highest it's been since 2015. Students looking to enroll at SES have been turned away for certain grade levels due to those grade levels being at capacity. Because Sandusky Elementary keeps a steady enrollment and more housing is being built in its zone every year, plus its low cost per student, doesn't it make the most financial and common sense to rebuild Sandusky Elementary for an affordable price rather than close it? When looking at priorities in the budget, keeping our students in a place where they are thriving should be the #1 priority. Has every avenue for saving money been studied? Has every budget item been scrutinized? Has every stone been turned over and looked under? School board members, in your budget, please propose to use $15 million to rebuild Sandusky Elementary and let our students, staff, and all LCS elementary students and staff continue to flourish in their own communities.
Thank you. Next is Carly Schaefer.
Your budget decisions tonight will deeply affect the school's future. Regarding the 2025 budget development PowerPoint, I have some questions. It says from the LCS master plan, admin plans to reorganize elementary schools into regions that are aligned with secondary schools. Region number 1 being Lincoln, Bedford Hills, Paul Monroe. Region 2, Bass, Payne, and Deerington. And Region 3, Perrymont, Sheffield, and Heritage. With your neighborhood schools plan, Region 1 and 2 will be completely racially divided into black and white. How is that okay? Where is the funding for more innovation programs? Just as you couldn't grow CTE this year, will innovation programs disappear too? Why are you closing T.C. Miller, an established school of performing arts, while supposedly starting a new program for performing arts? Include us in the plan. What about parent choice, transportation costs? How can you plan for these schools without projected enrollments after rezoning? Are we actually adding at least 3 admin positions, thus costs for region principals? Why are virtual options listed as a priority with 22 positions among other costs, yet parents have the free Virginia Online State option? We are funding a replicant while closing in-person schools. And the cost of moving our 600 children, of transferring the programs you promised would stay and took years and grants to establish? What happens to TCM's building? Does it go to administration rather than students, or does it become dangerously vacant, a remaining city cost? I read that each region will have a cluster of resource teachers allocated. I truly hope this doesn't mean that 3 elementary schools will share library, art, music, science, and movement teachers. State funding may also be lost as families leave LCS over this fall. Please keep T.C. Miller and Sandusky on your budget sheet. We've presented research saving options of $6 to $10 million with PPAs, solar, cuts, and public transits, and proposals to affordably rebuild Sandusky and convert T.C. Miller. Invest in our students. Stop pulling resources from our Black, brown, and low-income students. Allocate the funds to support them by keeping their schools open. You voted to keep us open 1 more year, but the children and staff are stuck in limbo and anxiety. Meanwhile, LCS has made national news twice, and not in a good way. It isn't backbone when you are failing the very children you serve. We need a win. Convert T.C. Miller to a hybrid elementary and preschool. We'll increase capacity by 100 students, including 54 preschool slots, improving building utilization and meeting key LCS goals. Some of you saw Shrek this weekend. Thank you for coming. Perhaps you can see why we fight month after month after month for these children, and this is only one aspect of our amazing school. Include us in your budget. Convert T.C. Miller to hybrid. Save our schools, our home, our culture, our students, whom your budget is meant to serve.
Thank you. Next, David Long. Oh, excuse me, we've already heard David. Unless you want to talk again. No, that's, Jennifer Long. Yeah.
So as you guessed, I'm David's mom, and he has been attending Virtual Academy for the last 3 years since the first day it opened. And I can say that sending our son to LVA has been the best decision that we have made regarding his education, hands down. We absolutely love LVA. His confidence and focus in school has increased dramatically. This has also carried over into his confidence socially. His understanding and retention of class material has also greatly increased. He has done well and improved on his SOL testing. I believe that is due to the dedication of his teachers, and that he is becoming an independent learner and independent thinker. The teachers are incredible, absolutely incredible. We love that they are in constant communication and go above and beyond for the students and families. They have moments where they have come to our house and dropped things off for them, for David, and it's been incredible. As a parent, to see my child exhibit confidence, enjoyment of school, feeling loved and accepted matters way more than grades. However, he has also been able to maintain A's and B's because of this style of learning and the environment that he has and its approach. I come before you tonight to respectfully ask you to fully fund LVA for the next school year and beyond, and to allow LVA to stay open so that my son and all the other incredible students that I get to watch can attend until high school graduation. This would certainly be making the LCS motto, every child by name and by need, to graduation and beyond, come to fruition. This is a definite need for my son, and I know many of the other students as I have seen them grow and in my observation as they've learned and as I've watched the live teaching. They're amazing kids, and I love the teaching, and I've seen growth in David, and I know that this is a absolute need for him to be successful in school. I thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Nathan Albert.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Nathan Albert, and I am the parent of a second grade student at Lynchburg Virtual Academy. My wife is also a member of the PTO that they have organized at that institution. I'd like to make a comment quickly on the value of this school and add my voice to those supporting and asking for the funding of this school moving forward. We learned our child is quite anxious. He's actually to the point where he had a few panic attacks at our neighborhood school. While at school, it just seemed a combination of elements. We learned that such an environment didn't seem to work for him. It wasn't the best suited educational environment. However, through to some luck, I would say, he joined Lynchburg Virtual Academy, and it's drastically and positively impact our child's learning. Not only does he love it, but almost every night before bed, he talks about his excitement to hop on Zoom and hang out with his teacher and his classmates. He's less anxious, his reading has blossomed, he's much more social, he's brave, and although he still blocks at homework, he is flourishing in ways I didn't know possible in a virtual classroom. It's almost as if this educational experience was tailor-made for him, and I am so appreciative of that. Additionally, my preschool child gets a sneak peek as well. He tries to listen and learn off in the corner and get a peek of the teacher. And he talks about maybe one day having his own Chromebook like his big brother. The staff administration, Mr. Boyd in particular at LVA, are phenomenal. The in-person events, regular extracurricular activities are wonderful to build connections with classmates. As parents, we love to hear what he is learning throughout the day. We love how the teachers lead the classrooms and the flexibility and choice that the school offers our family so our children can learn in such an environment. It's an essential resource that adds to the value of this educational system and diversifies the learning experience for all students. It's a safe option for those students whose health and life would literally be in jeopardy if this was not an option. I also believe that LVA is a cutting edge and groundbreaking option for students within the city of Lynchburg. So I echo other comments and strongly ask that the Lynchburg City School Board continue to fund LVA for the upcoming academic year. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, do we have any voicemail? Okay.
Hello, my name is Sean Glass. My son Ezekiel is in the 6th grade at the Lynchburg Virtual Academy, and I'd like to speak in favor of continuing this program. LVA has been a wonderful influence on my son. Not only has he been doing better academically, but he's blossomed socially. He's made lots of friends and is always telling me about some aspect of his day. And whether he's gushing about his teachers or telling me about some activity he did in class, I can see the newfound excitement in my son's eyes and hear it in his voice. Nothing would please his mother and I more than to see this program continue. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Cochran, and my daughter Randy is a 6th grader at the Virtual Academy. My daughter has flourished in this environment. Online learning during its inception has marked a point in time where she's become more passionate about learning. She's become more innovative and thinks outside of the bubble. She has the freedom to take breaks as needed, and this motivates her to put her best foot forward. I'd also like to say that the lines of the communication between the staff, parents, and students is exceptional, and I find the staff to be very compassionate, caring, professional, and accessible at all times. We've had a few hurdles, and when we reach out about potential problems. They get addressed quickly and efficiently. I can't express how critical this type of learning environment is for some students. And I hope and pray that the Lynchburg City Schools will continue to offer and support the Lynchburg Virtual Academy. Thank you so much for your time. Jennifer Cochran.
Okay, that concludes the public comment period.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Item F1, motion to adjourn public hearing section.
Move we adjourn the public hearing session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just before I move, is there any other mails?
No.
Voicemails?
No.
You've taken care of everything.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Next item is G1, and I'll hand over the baton to Dr. Edwards.
Absolutely. Okay. So on our agenda is a special presentation, and we'd like to invite two of our former board members who were very dedicated to our Lynchburg City Schools to come up. That would be Dr. Brennan and Dr. Sinha. So it has been our tradition to present our board members with gifts for their service for 3 years, for 6 years, and for 9 years. 9 years is the current length of the term that you could serve if appointed 3 times by council. So we do have some gifts for you tonight that we want to share with you. But more importantly, we are here to really thank you for your service, your time. I'm sure when each of you signed up to be on the school board, you didn't know that it was more than just the Tuesday night meetings that folks see on our TV station. And I know I have traveled with you all to Richmond and to Charlottesville and to other places, and you've just given so many hours to our kids. You have been present in school, reading to kids, doing some of the troubleshooting hard work that needed to be done. But more importantly, we could always count on both of you for your expertise. Dr. Brennan, you helped us tremendously when this unknown thing called the pandemic happened, and you know, we were very fortunate to have our very own doctor on the board, and nobody understands stats the way that you do, Dr. Sinha, and I was grateful for you to be a part of the work that we did with the budget and being in our cohort and going to all of those meetings, and just the time that you've spent with me, helping me be a better leader. I appreciate all of that, the advice and the things that you've done. So I just want to say on behalf of me and my staff, and I'm sure board members have stuff to say as well, I just want to say thank you for your service.
Dr. Brennan, you know, when I called first time, you said, don't call me Dr. Brennan, call me Bob. And Bob became on my speed dial. And I had a nickname for you, Dr. Fauci of our school board. It's on record, it's on camera. I've called him many times because you helped us out through those 2 years of pandemic. So I really appreciate all those phone calls I had driving on 460 towards Petersburg with you. And Dr. Sinha, you missed here because all your skills on data analysis. And there's nobody with similar strengths. I mean, we got people, we have a PhD in mathematics, but you got a neck on real life data analysis. But thank you for all your service, all you have done for the kids. You were very passionate about what you believed in, and you stood by what you believed in. So appreciate it. And I open the floor for anybody who would like to. Dr. Carter, I'll start from there.
I just want to say I truly enjoyed our time together working on the school board, just knowing that you all had a heart for the students, and that was key. And that we worked through a lot of different things, from volunteer to whether or not students can go back to school, when they can go back, and just the data analysis. And it was just a pleasure just to be able to work and to work with civility and just with the knowledge that the intent was good and that we were sworn in to look first and foremost at the students, not anything else. And that was always a joy. And Dr. Sinha was able to just bring her knowledge of data and the fact that how much data we collect and how we can use it more effectively, that we don't have to go out and do anything else. We have it right at our hands and just to put it to work, and we've seen it put to work. And also, you just helped me understand that sometimes the data, we need to look at whether it's comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges, because you can really make a difference there and just skews things. And Dr. Brennan, just you coming, just with your knowledge and also with how much you help in the school system on a day-to-day basis, how you took time and had time with your busy schedule to go and read and to mentor and to help out. So if we can just follow you all's lead and just continue to advocate for each child and just to make sure that we're putting our mission statement to work, every child by name and by need to graduation and beyond. And thank you all. And this was long overdue, but whether or not, we're here now, so that's great.
I'd like to say that Dr. Brennan and Dr. Sinha were the two board members when I joined the board who did the most to help me get started as a board member. I think Dr. Brennan was the first one who reached out to me and said, can we sit down and just let me ask all my silly questions. They seem silly now, but at the time I was bewildered, and he helped me sort things out. And Dr. Sinha and I had many conversations driving to and from. We carpooled, and she gave me a lot of the sort of scuttlebutt about personalities on the board, which is valuable. Those things sometimes you learn the hard way, but it's good to have an upfront and clear presentation, and so I am grateful for that. You both, more than any two individuals, helped me get started as a board member, and I'm very grateful to both of you. Thank you.
I would have to agree that the two of you are probably among the most respected board members that Lynchburg City Schools has ever had, because you are genuine, because you're honest, because you're smart, but you're also not somebody that rubs that intellect in. You talk to us in a way that all of us can understand, and you do it out of sincerity and out of your love and concern for our children. And so we are truly blessed to have had both of you. So thank you.
Strangers.
I echo the same sentiments. You guys have made my freshman year on the school board amazing. You didn't shy away from me asking questions. In fact, you always encouraged it to try to get a holistic point of view. And it was very sad to see you guys go. And it's still, when you left, a kind of part of me left with you. And so I just appreciate everything that you guys did for us while you were on the board, your leadership, your heart, your intellect, everything. So I truly, from the bottom of my heart, do love you guys, and I miss you. So,
yeah. I don't know you very well from the school board. I hear all wonderful things about you, and I'd like to say you made it. Congratulations.
Mr. Jalil.
I know it's only hearsay, but I've heard only good things, so let's keep it like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Should we go with the proclamation?
Certainly. We have a little proclamation for you in honor of your service that Ms. Day is going to read.
A resolution of commendation for appreciation to Dr. Kimberly Sinha, presented by the Lynchburg City School Board. Dr. Kimberly Sinha, a champion crusader for the public education in the city of Lynchburg, has worked diligently as a member of the Lynchburg City School Board for a total of 7 years. Her professional manner in dealing with people and issues earned her favor as a caring and compassionate individual who devoted herself to the service of Lynchburg City Schools. Dr. Sinha has been an able spokesperson and supporter of educational causes. She has been encouraging to students and their families. Dr. Sinha, a parent herself, was knowledgeable of the challenges that many students, parents, teachers, and staff members encountered. Throughout her service, she was sensitive to the educational needs of all students and championed new and creative approaches to education. Her questions and comments demonstrated a keen understanding of the topics being discussed. With this resolution, the Lynchburg City School Board pays tribute to Dr. Kimberly Sinha, a person of excellence and integrity who by effort and by example made valuable and far-reaching contributions to public education in Lynchburg, Virginia. Whereas Dr. Sinha's keen insight and foresight were qualities of leadership that were appropriate to the needs of the Lynchburg City Schools during this period of change, challenge, and growth. And whereas Dr. Sinha consistently attended school events and programs, she participated on boards and committees as a representative of the school board, and she volunteered her time to help in all capacities throughout the school division, demonstrating her true support of LCS and all students. And be it resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia take pride in the excellent service that Dr. Kimberly Sinha rendered to the operation and success of the public schools of this community. And be it resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia hereby affirms its appreciation to Dr. Kimberly Sinha for 7 years of devoted service to public education, during which she demonstrated courage, tenacity, in the pursuit of educational excellence. Her numerous contributions will affect generations to come. The Lynchburg City School Board wishes to commend Dr. Kimberly Sinha for the quality of leadership on behalf of the school division, its youth, and the quality of her stewardship on behalf of the City of Lynchburg. The City of Lynchburg School Board Chair, Dr. Atul Gupta, Superintendent, Dr. Krista Edwards, December the 12th, 2023.
There's no picture, right?
Take a picture. Wait, I have my
Oh. We'll take pictures.
Do you want to come in the?
Yeah.
Do you want to come in here?
Want a picture with
You
all
wanna-
of us? Oh, yeah, I gotta stand in the horse. There you go.
She like her now?
Not yet.
One, two, three. Do one more. 1, 2, 3. That's really good. Thank you.
We do have a gift, but we don't want to reveal it yet. We'll do Dr. Brennan, and then we'll do the gift. You can certainly make some comments. We welcome that.
Between white time, is that okay? The other,
She's gonna make some comments.
Well, thank you very much, and, you know, always a person for data accuracy. It was not 7 years, it was 6 years, 4 months. I appreciate the bonus time you gave me. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, board members, Dr. Edwards, LCS administration, faculty and staff, students and families, thank you for this recognition of my service on the school board. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to all those who supported me during my time of service, my friends, my church, the board members I served alongside, LCS administration, and most of all, my wife, Courtney, and our child, Nora, back there. We're a one-car household, because like a lot of families, we've had to, you know, tighten up. So special thanks goes to every board member who gave me a ride, and you all did at one point or another, but especially to Dr. Day, who was my primary source of transportation last year. I served under the direction of very capable board chairs, Michael Nillis, Susan Morrison, and James Coleman. Nice to see you. Their leadership helped me be a better board member. And to all the board members I served alongside during my 2 terms, I thank you for your collaboration, dedication, unwavering commitment to the betterment of LCS. You worked hard, you did your homework, and you approached your responsibilities with a servant's heart. You knew, as I do, that it is easy to offend others when blinded by hubris. I would also like to extend my gratitude to LCS faculty and staff who worked tirelessly to provide our students with the best possible education. Your dedication to fostering a nurturing and enriching environment has not gone unnoticed, and it is your efforts that make our schools truly special. And I especially appreciate how much they all smile. We drop off Nora every morning, and they're always smiling. They can be standing out there in the pouring rain. They're smiling all the time. To the parents and guardians of LCS students, thank you for entrusting LCS with the education and well-being of your children. Your involvement, feedback, and advocacy play a crucial role in the success of our schools. It is a collective effort, and I'm honored to be among the people, now that I'm the parent of a student, that value public education and rightly view it as an investment toward a better future for our city, rather than a burden that some believe they should not have to bear. Of course, none of this would be possible without the incredible students who inspire us every day with their enthusiasm, curiosity, and resilience. Serving on a school board is not just a responsibility, it is a shared commitment to the betterment of our community. Together, Lynchburg can continue to create an environment where every student has the opportunity to thrive and reach their potential. As Principal Womack, best principal of LCS, as Principal Womack would say, we do it better when we do it together. Finally, my 6-year-old, a first grader at Sandusky Elementary, has a few suggestions for improving the student experience at LCS, so just bear with me. Having salad for lunch is great, but why can't we have eggs and cheese for our salads every day instead of on alternating days? 2, please make every Friday pajama day. 3, will you declare that there will never be any homework? 4, can you make the daily schedule like it is in that Wizard of Oz song? We get up at 12 and start to work at 1, take an hour for lunch, and then by 2 we're done. 5, school divisions across the country are moving to a 4-day week. Can we have every Monday off? And 6, can you make every Friday an early dismissal day? Finally, I broke a barrier by being the first openly queer person to serve or to be appointed to the Lynchburg School Board. To all of the queer students at LCS, don't let the homophobia that darkens our city darken your light. You are worthy of love and belonging. Be fierce, break barriers, and shine on. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Day, Dr. Brennan.
Mrs. Brennan, would you like to come forward too? Tea. You work much harder than him on the school. I think their son is there too, right? Would you? Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
A resolution of commendation of appreciation to Dr. Robert Brennan, presented by the Lynchburg City School Board. Dr. Robert Brennan, from 2017 to 2023, provided meritorious services to the city of Lynchburg as a member of the Lynchburg City School Board during his 6-year tenure on the board. Dr. Brennan occupied the seat of vice chair on 2 separate occasions, whether his professional experience as a physician with his deep passion for community engagement and enhancing student achievement and safety. Always putting kids first, Dr. Brennan worked with full investment of his time and energy in supporting school events throughout the division. He worked harmoniously with the Lynchburg City School Administration and staff, initially as a member of the Equity Task Force and then as a member of the Governance Working Group. He also faithfully served as a member of the LCS Teacher of the Year Committee and spearheaded our training opportunities for student representatives on the board. Of note, Dr. Brennan was instrumental in the organizing of our Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee and represented the board in advancing a Lynchburg-originated legislative position on volunteers to the VSBA Legislative Position Committee. To be sure, Dr. Brennan will never be forgotten for his well-prepared comments given during the board meetings and his timely insights offered during the onset of the incredible challenging time of COVID-19. With this resolution, the Lynchburg City School Board pays tribute to Dr. Robert Brennan, a person of excellence and integrity who by effort and by example made valuable and far-reaching contributions to the public education in Lynchburg, Virginia. Whereas Dr. Brennan, keen insight and foresight were qualities of leaderships that were appropriate to the needs of the Lynchburg City Schools during this period of change, challenge, and growth. And whereas Dr. Brennan consistently attended school events and programs, he participated on boards and committees as a representative of the school board, and he volunteered his time to help in all capacities throughout the school division, demonstrating his true support of LCS and all students. And being resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia takes pride in the excellent service that Dr. Robert Brennan rendered to the operation and success of the public schools of this community. And be it resolved that the Lynchburg City School Board of Lynchburg, Virginia hereby affirms its appreciation to Dr. Robert Brennan for 6 years of devoted service at public education, during which he demonstrated courage and tenacity in the pursuit of educational excellence. His numerous contributions will affect generations to come. The Lynchburg City School Board wishes to commend Dr. Robert Brennan for the quality of leadership on behalf of the school division and its youth, and for the quality of his stewardship on the behalf of the City of Lynchburg, Virginia. The City of Lynchburg School Board, Chair Dr. Atul Gupta, Superintendent Dr. Krista Edwards, December the 12th, 2023.
Want to talk about the special gift that we have for serving 6 years. And oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Brennan. Yes, I don't want to cut you off for words of wisdom. My fault. Please, no, please.
For your time, but I just wanted to express my thanks, and I'm just so humbled by this nice recognition and by the kind words that have been said. I appreciate it very much. Dr. Gupta, Dr. Edwards, LCS board members, thank you for that nice recognition. I have to say my 6-year experience as an LCS board member was one of the most challenging and satisfying positions that I've had in my career. And I'd like to offer my sincere thanks to the board members who served with me, including Anthony Andrews, who continues to be the best dressed member of the Lynchburg, as well as Sharon Carter and Randy Trost, Gloria Preston, Marty Day, Dr. Atul Gupta, Dr. James Coleman, who's here this evening, as well as to Dr. Edwards and her amazing staff that she has put together, that I cannot thank you as much for your remarkable support and for your amazing dedication to Lynchburg City Schools. I'm very aware that you've received a lot of comments recently regarding difficult decisions you've had to make, and I readily admit that I've been very thankful that I'm no longer on your side of the dais. On this occasion, as my last chance to address the board, I'd like to share a few things that have helped me through my term as school board member, and perhaps they may be helpful to some of you in the future. The first thing is I always found it helpful to be a participant and not just an observer. On a formal basis, I did that by visiting the principal or director of every school every fall, so that I had a relationship with them outside of the boardroom and outside of the discipline committee meetings. On an informal basis, I tried to attend in the schools as many events as I could, including sporting events, drama, community meetings, and other things. And on a personal basis, during my tenure, and as I continue this year, I also go to Darrington every other week to read to a second grade class there, and it's been one of the best experiences I've had to appreciate not only being a board member, but being a community member. And it never ceases to amaze me how it was appreciated by the staff, students, and parents just to show up. Just made such a big difference. The other suggestion I would have, and I think you're doing a good job at this, but I think we can always talk about some more, is to try to be a good listener. As you can imagine, it's hard to stand at this podium before this board under the time limit to express an opinion in a succinct and clear manner, although I have to say that David did a great job tonight when he did that. However, even though this board is elected, I always felt that the students, parents, and staff and community members were my constituency. And I needed to let them know that I was listening and I heard what they said. Just like in the practice of medicine, I feel as a board member, the constituents don't care how much I know, they want to know that I care. And then finally, I know that you're dealing with many difficult issues, and starting today with the budget and other issues that have come up. But I just want to encourage you to support your newly appointed academic committee to aggressively address the achievement gap. Danny McCain, bless his heart, has publicly and accurately for many years said that the achievement gap has persisted and not changed. And he's exactly right. And that's despite multiple board members, multiple superintendents, multiple leadership in Lynchburg schools. It's a difficult task. And it's one that has developed over the generations, and I think it's going to take generations to really address it. But I do hope that this school board, with their initiative, is willing to do it, and I hope that as part of that initiative will be a opportunity to look at more pre-K opportunities for the students, because I think it's only starting before they enter school that we're really going to see an impact as they get into school and leave school. So thank you for your kind words. Thank you for this recognition. I appreciate it.
Dr. Coleman, would you like to say a few words, because you have been an active member throughout this?
To this august body, I have 2 or 3 words. Thank you for doing this tonight. These two deserve this type of honor and more, and we are very proud of you as you continue to do the work for the kids of Lynchburg, Virginia.
Thank you for all your service. Thank you. Dr. Edwards?
Now we want to talk a little bit about the gift that we give. So Tina, do you want to talk a little bit about what we give for 6 years and 6 years, and you said 4 months, was it? Actually 5. Okay.
Should we hand them or?
Yeah, we're gonna share.
Numbers keep moving, right?
Yeah, just so the public can see as well, because. So it is customary to give them a nice engraved lamp for their service to the school board, because they really did light up our lives while working with us. And I do have a challenge now that I see the 3 of you out there, and the challenge goes to this school board. because all three of you have done the VSBA 5K with me when we go to VSBA. So, who are going to be the next three when we go this next year to take up the challenge of also keeping the mind, body, and spirit healthy? So, we'd like to present you all with these gifts, as well as a little something from the administrative team. This was to Dr. Sinha from July 2016 to July 2020. This is just a little something from the administrative team because we so value working with all of you.
Great team, thank you so much, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for both of you for your service, and we have seen it firsthand. So this is they're very passionate about what they believe in. Next one is item H1, High School Program of Studies, Dr.
So Ms. Cruz is here. I think they presented the high school program of studies at the previous meeting, and I think we had some questions that were answered, and it's on the agenda so that we can get ready for the new school year next year, believe it or not. So, turn it over if there are any questions for this.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the high school program of studies for the 2024-2025 academic year.
Second.
Second.
Dr. Carter and Dr. Day, any discussion? I think all the questions the staff has asked, they have been answered. Any additional questions? They'll be happy to answer now. Any other additional discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Jamil?
Abstain.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Ms. Lowry, I apologize, I left you during those comments for Dr. Brennan and Dr. Sinha. So,
I don't think they want to hear me cough through everything, so.
thank you.
But they did a great job.
Next is item H2, fiscal year 24-25 operating budget, Dr. Edwards.
Yes, so this is the start of our budget prep for the next school year, FY25 school year. And typically during the December work session, we opened it up for the public hearing, which is more before we get started on the budget, to hear what the public concerns are, what the public would like to see in the budget. So I did take some very good notes as you all were speaking about things that you would like us to consider for the budget. It's also a time for the board to review its priorities and spend some time discussing what the focus for the upcoming school year budget will be. But one of the things that we like to do is provide data, which again, you've heard us talk a lot about that. On board docs, there is a document that, I don't even know how many pages it is, but it's a lot. And it has a lot of data in there, some of which you requested that we've provided last year. There's data about enrollment, data about staffing, there's academic data in there. And the reason why we do this is before we start working on a budget, which are the numbers, we really want to make sure that the budget is student focused. And the budget is based on some goals and things that we want to achieve in that budget. So that is why we don't start with numbers first. We really just start looking at data first. But there are pieces of data that we really haven't shared with the board to the degree that we did with some of this written data. And one of the things we thought we would do differently this year, particularly because we have a lot of special programs to support our children. So we've asked some of the principals of those special programs to be here tonight to tell you and share with you some of their version of, I like to call it live and in-person data for things like LVA and for some of our Fort Hill programs. And I know I saw Casey Jefferson and even Lauren back there, so that you have an opportunity just to learn more about that before we go making decisions about our budget and our schools. So I don't know what order it is, but Josh, I see you here first, so I'm going to call up Mr. Boyd, and they have brief comments to share with you, just a little bit about their programs. And if you guys can self-arrange and just come up when the next one is done, that would be great.
Did they receive the pamphlets?
No.
Didn't think so.
Dr. Edwards, Dr. Gupta, members of the school board, good evening. My name is Joshua Boyd. I'm the principal of the LCS Virtual Academy. With me is Dr. Anna Peretti, who is a clinical psychiatrist who specializes in adolescent psychiatry. LVA has built a virtual program within LCS whose mission is to engage, educate, and empower our students to be college and career ready by providing a quality, learner-driven educational experience as they develop into independent and responsible citizens. On the pamphlet that you receive, you will see who we are and why families choose us. Before I highlight a few items on that pamphlet, allow me to direct your attention to our goals for next school year. LVA is asking the school board to prioritize the K-12 Academy as a whole, providing consistent support for virtual students and broadening our marketability. We are also asking to offer partial enrollments to homeschool families and those in and out of our school division. With some policy changes, we can work to become more self-sustaining from a financial standpoint. And remember, we're targeting any student who can benefit from virtual learning, but especially those that are not already enrolled in LCS. So I'm not going to read to you from the pamphlet, but please allow me to highlight a few items. First, our program is a microcosm of our community. We have students who are former homeschoolers, who have attended private schools, and who are LCS students and outside of the division. Our students learn anywhere with an internet connection. We literally have a former skateboarding champion who travels the world, and he Zooms with us for wherever he is. He has an internet connection, so there's no problem. We have families who split custody, no problem. Families love this flexibility as their travel plans during different times of the year are freed up because their kids don't miss school. In-person learning is one way to learn, but it's not the only way, and the world is changing in that regard. Our parents are involved. You've heard from some of them tonight. By the nature of our program, parents can choose the involvement level based on the needs of their child. Many of our families love this aspect of our program. Academically, we have the unique ability to quietly differentiate the instruction of our students who have struggled in the past through the practice of one-on-one meetings where students and teachers can identify how to best help the students succeed. Students with disabilities get support and accommodations without their classmates knowing. This empowers them to develop advocacy and confidence. This year, LVA has gotten into project-based learning, which is exposing students to authentic and meaningful learning tasks and connecting them with local community experts to provide them with feedback that will improve their projects. In a nutshell, we are furthering our mission of engaging, educating, and empowering our students to be college or career ready, and we're committed to innovation in the future. Socially, LVA creates learning spaces that are safe for students. Due to technological structures that we've put in place, students can learn in academic settings that decrease anxiety, that have the ability to interact with their classmates virtually and get to know them just as students in person. What we've witnessed at our in-person events is that students gravitate towards each other that they've mainly just seen on screen, but they enjoy getting to know each other in person as well, and they build those bonds that you would see at any in-person school. Students who struggle with self-control can thrive virtually because they can wiggle, they can stand up, they can eat, they can play, they can exercise, and it doesn't affect the classroom environment. So I'll close by saying, why should you prioritize funding LVA? 2 words, by need. 2 simple yet important words in our mission statement that speaks to the diversity within our school division and how each student learns differently. As I stated, I have Dr. Anna Peretti, who is with me to speak from his perspective on why the LCS Virtual Academy should be a priority for LCS moving forward. He's been a vocal supporter of our program and its ability to further LCS's mission. Dr. Anna.
Thank you all for giving me the opportunity. From my perspective as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, this program has been a godsend. Before this program came into existence, I had a lot of kids who are being homeschooled, not because of a choice, but because of a necessity. Most of them are in the virtual academy now, thriving, doing well. And families tell me that they don't need to choose between school and treatment. And some of these kids cannot function in a public school setting, even with the best effort that we can provide. And most of these kids are doing really well, and I hope that you all will look into supporting this program, because a lot of the kids who cannot be in the public school system and some of the kids who have been in the private school placements are thriving in this program. And for me, that's the measure of success I look for. Thank you.
May I ask him a question? Mr. Boyd? Mr. Boyd, I do have a question, a quick one. I was looking this afternoon through the reams of information that we have for your current enrollment.
Yes.
Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's about 165 students.
165. Okay, that's all I was looking for. Thank you.
Yes.
The cost per student?
So it's I don't have the exact number, but it's somewhere between 10 and 11,000.
Okay.
About 10,500.
Mr. Boyd is very passionate about, he and I had long conversations, so you have a lot of plans to expand the virtual academy. I just wanted to make that statement that you're not just sitting idle, you're looking at different plans to expand your student base.
And I have to say thank you to the leadership. They have really worked to make this marketable to not just Lynchburg City Schools residents, but people in our region and in our state and beyond.
Thank you. Mr. Julian?
I'd like to know what, off the top of your head, are the things that are not duplicated by the state virtual system?
Sarah, say it again.
What are the things that are not duplicated in, by LVA, by the system, the virtual system that the state has?
How are you different from virtual Virginia? What's unique?
Yeah, so I would say there's a few things. Number one, my experience in LVA is that we have LCS teachers that provide live synchronous instruction. They provide one-on-one help sessions, but we're also local. And so students get to know their teachers. They have opportunities to come up and get additional one-on-one help. The curriculum that our teachers have created, they've created it. So one difference between us and, for example, Virtual Virginia or one of those other programs is that our teachers adapt their curriculum to the needs of their students. A lot of the other programs they're created by one group of people and they are administered by another group. And so there's no changing. It is very much what you see is what you get. But there's an opportunity for teachers in our program to see, this is my group of students this year versus this is my group of students next year. And I'm going to adapt my curriculum. I'm going to choose different novels. I'm going to choose different programs, different websites, different whatever to help my students, because first and foremost, they're students that have stories and have backgrounds and have different strengths and weaknesses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Dr. Glover, who is the principal of Fort Hill.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Fort Hill Community School has been an integral part of the overall LCS mission for many years now, striving to educate and assist students that for one reason or another have been deemed to need a non-traditional setting in which to learn. When I took over as principal this past summer, my task was to lead the school in filling the important role it had come to play for the community, while also envisioning and enacting a series of programmatic changes to better prepare our students for graduation and life after high school. Over these last few months, I'm happy to report, my staff and I have jumped headfirst into these changes. It has not been seamless or easy, and there's still much work to do, but we are making progress towards our collectively created mission to form capable and confident students who are empowered to be academically successful and socially responsible. Prior to my start as principal, Fort Hill Community School had, for legitimate reasons, been structured as 2 separate 3-hour sessions for both middle and high school students. Students remained in one class with one teacher for the entire 3 hours, working mostly on paper packets of work. The morning and afternoon sessions both enrolled approximately 60 students apiece, while many more students had to be added on remote learning because there was not enough space or staffing for them in the building. Knowing that large numbers of students did not want to return to their base schools because Fort Hill was such a short day for them, and that it is difficult to get an adequate education in just 3 hours per day, our first change was to extend the school day for all students to 6 hours. To do this, we also had to increase the number of students in the building at one time from 60 to 90. This change allows us to better prepare students to transition back to their base schools because their educational stamina and focus are increased. Furthermore, students now switch classes rather than remain with one teacher for the entire time, and they receive direct instruction with engaging activities and active teaching by a content-focused teacher rather than someone assisting them with packets of work for every subject. They are also able to take elective classes through Edmentum so that they do not fall further behind in credits. These changes in some ways actually make Fort Hill more traditional rather than non-traditional, but the balance between the two is delicate. The goal for most of our students is to transition back to their base schools, and structuring the school day with a more traditional format better prepares them to do that. However, Fort Hill still retains smaller class sizes, typical of alternative schools, and it has a heightened focus on trying to teach students skills and provide them with the support and grace to learn from their mistakes while also holding them accountable. This emphasis on the restorative aspect is critical for alternative schools where many students already possess deep trauma and maladaptive behaviors as defense mechanisms. Because the goal for most of our students is transitioning back to their base schools, we also felt it necessary to establish a more formal transition process and curriculum for students. To do this, we identified core skills that students needed to have to transition successfully to their base schools, as well as common problematic areas that needed to be directly addressed. My staff then created a detailed curriculum, complete with topics, activities, discussions, and tools to use with students beginning 2 weeks before their transition date. Upon completion, students receive a dog tag with a special message on it to mark their re-entry and to serve as a reminder when they doubt themselves or how far they've come. Then, for 2 weeks after a student's transition, my restorative team follows and checks on them in their schools, serving as trusted guides to help them through any initial unease and concerns. I wish I had the time to describe the many more changes we are implementing, including structured mentoring through various partnerships, or the changes we hope to implement next year, like internships and apprenticeships to get students connected to careers for pay and/or credit. I also wish I could say that everything is always smooth and effective. The truth is that change is difficult, working with students is complex, and navigating change with students is even more complex. Some of what we do is trial and error, and based on data and feedback, we adjust until we find something that works better. For example, we noticed that our referrals during the first quarter were disproportionately high after students received lunch. In fact, we had 83 referrals during that time of day, accounting for 63% of the total referrals written. After making several modifications to our schedule in response, our after-lunch referrals dropped to 17 at the second quarter interim mark, which is 41% of total referrals for the quarter. I'm also happy to report that we had 16 students transition back to their base schools at the end of the first quarter. Thus far, almost 8 weeks later, just one student has been sent back to Fort Hill for behavior problems in school. While this number will fluctuate as time goes on, we will also continue to make improvements to our program to ensure we give each of our students the best chance possible to achieve success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Dr. Glover? You're doing an amazing job. You are a best host. You saw that. So, thank you for everything you do, sir.
All right,
Questions for Dr. Glover? You've been.
Yeah, I visited Fort Hill last year under
Yes,
the
sir.
previous director and was very impressed by what you do. Have you had, Does what you do at Fort Hill interact very much with the new restorative academy that Dr. Brown has been getting off the ground?
There's the Restorative Suspension Center and the Restorative Academy. We do not do much interaction with the Restorative Suspension Center. So if our students get suspended, for instance, they are not eligible to go to
Okay.
Restorative Suspension Center. The Restorative Academy is a little bit connected. Some of our students actually will transition down as a step down to the Restorative Academy before they go back to their base schools.
Okay.
And depending upon the grade, if a student is in 6th grade or in 9th grade, oftentimes Ms. Terry will have the disciplinary meetings, but some of those students will go to Restorative Academy first and see if they can do well there. And if they then struggle, then we'll have a meeting to figure out if they go to Fort Hill.
Dr. Glover, would you be comfortable to talk about your future space needs with the board?
Oh. Yeah, I can talk about that. So our building right now is very small. For those of you that have been there, you've seen it. Our classrooms are really small. So one of my biggest concerns, honestly, is we have our enrollment constantly fluctuates just depending upon the students we get in the building and the students that are going back to their base schools, all that stuff. So it changes regularly. We'll serve. Last year, Fort Hill served, because it's also a regional program, so we get some students from the counties. Last year, Fort Hill served about 240 students total throughout the year. At one time, like right now, we have about 120 students, but because of our space limitations, about 30 of them have to be on remote learning, and we're not staffed for a remote or virtual staff person. We have somebody checking to make sure that they're doing work, but we don't have a staff member during the day to help them necessarily with their lessons unless they reach out to us. So my biggest concern is we have to turn away students to put them on remote just because we don't have space. So ideally, we would have a space where we could fit all the students that need to come to Fort Hill Community School, which would probably be between 120 to 130, 140 at one time.
Thank you. Other questions for Dr. Glover? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Casey Jeffers.
I'm trying to watch for pop-ups just to see. Not everybody was going to speak, but Ms. Jefferson can.
Hello, everybody. Please excuse my attire. I'm doing wifely basketball, mom duties, and running back to Manellison for a winter concert. Didn't want to waste paper because everything is electronic. but-
Soon to be Dr. Jeffers.
Yeah, maybe. I have a long way to go for that. A lot of work. Good evening, everybody. I am Casey Jefferson. I am the proud principal on special assignment for Lynchburg City Schools, which is a new position for me, and I do not like change well, so I'm learning to adapt and adjust. As part of my mission, I am here to focus on the and beyond part of Lynchburg City Schools' mission. And by that I mean absolutely, I embody every student by name, by need to graduation, but the and beyond. It's no longer enough, school board members, community members out there watching, for our students to graduate. They have to have a plan. We don't want them just walking across the stage. We don't want them to receive a GED and then have to think, oh no, and then what? That's where I come in as the principal on special assignment. As my shirt says, I have a heart for both of my babies at EC Glass and at Heritage because I serve not only EC Glass and Heritage students, but I have acquired virtual academy students, postgraduate students as well, come one, come all, and there is only one of me. I am grateful for the opportunity once my program closed. Debbie G. Moody is here, whom I love and has been beside me for a long time at the Empowerment Academy, doing great work with me. But it was a difficult transition to then say, okay, now what do you want me to do? Amy, what do you want me to do, Dr. Edwards? What do you want me to do, Dr. Wodeka, now? What's my new challenge? And that is to make sure that I am providing the and beyond part of our mission and making sure that our students know that they are seen, that they are cared about, that they are thought about, going into the and beyond, and even when they are and beyond, Dr. Carter has a lovely niece that I've spoken to just recently as a post-grad. They're always our babies. They're always my babies. And as you see on your pamphlet or your handout there, in looking back a couple of meetings, out of the mouths of babes, our students told us, specifically the VDH gave a survey that Ms. Zoe Wickham-Stokes presented to you all some months ago in the summer, and they said, hey, we are feeling unhappy. We are even having a suicide plan. That is huge, absolutely huge. And our sophomores and our seniors who took the survey even reported that they were 7% more likely to engage in self-harm. And a lot of that I am learning, and Ms. Moody has also learned alongside with me as my former teammate, that when you don't feel seen, you don't feel heard, you don't know your purpose and your passion, you won't finish school. You will drift off, you will drop out, you will feel like someone does not care. And that is what I do, ladies and gentlemen, as the principal on special assignment. I do my best to make all students on my caseload feel heard, feel seen, feel cared about, and even cousins and sisters and brothers that I'm acquiring. When we first started this journey, Dr. Edwards said, okay, where are you gonna start, Casey? And I said, I have no idea. Can you tell me where to start? And she said, okay, well, let's look at perhaps juniors and seniors that have an average of a C GPA or below. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 256 students. There's only one POSA. So I implore you to think about our mission overall, which is to make sure that we are equipping our students, as Dr. Boyd said. I'm speaking that into existence, he's not here. As Dr. Boyd mentioned earlier about preparing our students to go into employment and to make them successful. And not just employment, it can absolutely be post-secondary. But college and university is not for everybody right away. We have a 52% rate within our own city of jobs that are not occupied right now, that are sitting open. If I can take my students, my babies, our babies, and give them a focus and a passion and a mission to want to finish, to then go into the workforce, and then go on to get their education hopefully paid for the company for which they pay, making more than me, that's why I'm here today. So I hope that you see a purpose in funding this continued position and even growing it. Again, there's only one me, and I am doing my best to serve multiple secondary schools as well as programs. So I thank you for your time, and every student by name and need to graduation and beyond. Thank you.
Your passion is contagious, no doubt.
Thank you.
And
I love my kids, and I'm blessed to do what I do every single day.
I'm glad what you're doing, but is there any way you can collaborate with Virtual Academy? Because there was an article in News in Advance about virtual counseling is just one booming industry.
Absolutely.
So putting two together to see we can sort of,
Yes, sir.
build up
I currently have 6 students on my caseload that I serve of Mr. Boyd's and his staff that I visit with. Case in point, I just met with one at Barnes & Noble on Thursday at noon, and she was looking to drop out and said, hey, I'm working 2 jobs. I'm doing what I'm doing on my own. And I said, absolutely not. Come on, we've got this. So we're looking to get her finished up, get her into the radiology program at CVCC. But again, catching her before she drifted off, before we lost her. That's the key. And that collaboration, doing what I do as the principal on special assignment, being able to, my counselors at both schools have 300 plus students on their caseloads. That is astronomical. I don't know anyone that can build a relationship that is sustainable with 300 students, even if you're a super person and they're doing the best that they can. That's where I come in as POSA. So yes, sir, Dr. Gupta, I am partnering with not only our schools and our programs like Virtual Academy, but also our businesses and our academic institutions to make sure that I am connecting students with things that empower them and feel that passion. I have a Heritage High School student that I hope is going to Costa Rica. We're working on getting her documentation to get her a passport. She is looking at marine biology. That's her passion. Happened to have someone say, I want to take someone to Costa Rica through the University of Lynchburg. We're looking for students to really drive that, that love of science, and I'm working with her to get her passport to have her go there, and she will also be able to put that on her resume, working on watershed. It's not salt water, it is just water, but she's gonna be right there with the manatees doing all the things, and I'm hoping she'll fit me in her bag, so. Can you tell I'm an English teacher, the water. But yes, sir, doing the best I can, Dr. Gupta.
Thank
Doing
you.
the best I can, yes, sir.
Dr. Day.
So I'd like to ask,
Yes, sir.
what would you say are the most critical resource needs to support what you're doing?
Humans.
People, staff?
I need staff that are ready to be real, who really and truly love students that feel marginalized and lost and disadvantaged and want to understand the functions of their maladaptive behaviors. When we feel lost, we act out. When we don't understand what's going on in our math class, we skip. If we continue to punish and not understand the functions of the behavior, we're gonna lose kids. If we don't have staff that is trained to build relationships, one, we have to take care of ourselves as educators. If we're burnt out and fragile, there's no way that we're able to pour into another cup. But when we're able to, if we're able to then build that relationship with the student to say, Amy, tell me a little bit about horse riding, saw something on your bag, is that what you want to do? Let's talk about it. And how can that be built into getting Amy to finish school, to then take another step into a career that involves horses, or maybe it's horse therapy or just therapy. I need people, and businesses, community members who are willing to make that consistent connection with students. I can't do it without my network and building networks. That's another thing that Dr. Edwards and Amy are helping me with. I'm an introvert and don't do well with people, and stepping outside of my comfort zone. So really networking with businesses to say, would you be willing to take a chance on my student who's interested in getting his CDL or her CDL or whatever the case may be. So keeping an open mind, being willing to pour resources into things like restorative justice, like Miss Annie Terry has been working on and training a lot of the staff on, and just being ready to put in the work.
How do students come to your attention as students that you would want to have an impact on?
Word of mouth. Originally, like I mentioned earlier, Dr. Edwards said, oh, righty, kiddo, where are you gonna start? Got this job, you are now the POSA, and go, go, go. So now it is word of mouth, and I'm having to say I can't do anymore. It is connecting with the guidance counselors, connecting, it could even be with Dr. Edwards' secretary, who says, hey, I had a mom who was very passionate about her daughter, but she wants to do well, but she's feeling lost. Can you connect with her at Glass? It could be Miss Terry, who says, Case, I got a Spitfire for you, and I know you like a challenge. Come and meet her or him. And then really, again, just making that connection with the student to say, tell me a little bit about what you don't like, what you do like, and where we are headed. So a lot of just word of mouth at this point. And I wanted to be here in person today. Again, please excuse my attire, but I wanted to be here in person today so that everyone understood that while the Empowerment Academy is not there in brick and mortar anymore, it still lives in us. And we are still ready to do that heart work that's here in the vessels that we have still here remaining, and amazing other people from baby Sandusky's to on up to Dr. Glover. So we're gonna keep it going one way or another. So I hope that this position can be funded and more training, more resources to help these students.
I know there's some other businesses and whatever that are doing similar kind of work, and because obviously they want some of these young people to be trained to move into their jobs. Are you collaborating with any of those businesses at all, or is that something that you're?
Absolutely. Everyone from Legacy Education Center to Old Dominion Job Corps to Dawson Trucking. I'm so excited about a meeting we're going to have in January when we get back with at least 10 of my caseload students, and then we'll have some more from EC Glass and Heritage that expressed interest in CDL work, in driving work, but Dawson Trucking has been wonderful, and they are saying we need people that want to work and that are interested in that line of work, both short-term and long-term. So bring them in, let's talk about it, and again, ignite that passion. But there are so many others that I could go on, from vector space to, I mean, I could just name lots, but yes, there's so many businesses that are willing to keep that open mind and say, absolutely, because we're serving the community. My position serves the community. We as educators serve the community to make sure that, again, the and beyond, we are preparing students who have that employment maturity. If you don't know to keep your safety goggles on, if you don't know to speak to a supervisor because you're feeling ill and you just leave a Post-it note that gets stuck to somebody's shoe and you're in a warehouse or a plant, which really we had that happen. One of my students lost a $62,000 job because he got sick and left a Post-it note and it was lost and they didn't know where he was in the plant. That's major. So working on those skills, those hard and soft core skills, to know this is what you need to do in order to sustain, not only to gain it, but to sustain gainful employment.
Question.
And that again goes into post-secondary as well. That goes into college and university. As you all know, I mean, students have to have that grit. They have to have that focus in order to be successful as a student in your class.
Ms. Lowry?
My question is to Principal Casey. Have you connected with the Partners in Education, with the PI Group and all the businesses they're
Yes.
familiar with? And
Yeah. Ms. Boyd has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, as has Ms. Dawn has been phenomenal when it comes to providing supports for our students, resources for our students through the Ed Foundation that we have. So yes, ma'am, thank you for that suggestion, but yes, I'm tapping into any resource that we can. Yes, ma'am. Teamwork makes the dream work. We do it better when we do it together. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I would not let anybody convince you that you are introvert. I have seen you in class,
Yes.
live in action.
Yes, I was going to say the same
Your writing
thing.
skills are top notch. I have written those papers, seen those papers. So please don't let anybody convince you the other way.
I'm crawling out of my skin. I hope you can't tell.
Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Dr. Edwards?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking, I'm watching the bodies out here, so Mr. Jared Martin is coming up.
All right, my name is Jared Martin. I'm the coordinator of the Restorative Suspension Center here with Lynchburg City Schools. Our proposal today is going to be for security cameras within our building. But before we talk about that, I want to let the handouts go around so everybody can look at those. And we're going to talk about our mission. Our mission is to create a safe and inclusive environment, fostering positive behavior changes and supporting the overall being of our students with Lynchburg City Schools. So students get referrals at either any of our base schools, whether it's Heritage, Glass, Sandusky, Lincoln, or Dunbar, and based on their referral, we follow a matrix, and then students get sent to us for a period of days. So what you'll see is the numbers on my one-pager handout there that says Fall 23 numbers at a glance. So just looking at students we've served up until today, we have 46 students at Heritage that have participated in our program. That's going to accumulate to 188 days served. So each student can come from 1 to 10 days based off that student actions based on the discipline matrix. Glass has served 65 students with 122 days. Lincoln has served 30, Sandusky has served 35, and Dunbar 32. And those numbers there you have based off their days are based off an average of how many students we see per day. And with that being said, the things that we're asking for will be a behavior coach and cameras installed within our building. So we're located at Amelia Pride, which is going to probably be one of the older buildings within Lynchburg City Schools. And one of the things that we would need would definitely be security cameras that will help enforce, help it reduce the he said, she said. It will provide support for solutions when things need to be reviewed on cameras. And then it'll help staff with any decision need to be made that need to be reviewed on cameras. I'm a football coach, and we have a saying that the eye in the sky doesn't lie, so that's a really good supportive tool for us at the suspension center. And so at this time, I would like to open it up to the floor for any questions, because I know we're a new program, so I'm assuming you all have a lot of questions for me.
How many cameras are you interested in having?
We're looking to cover the main areas, so we want to cover the entry area there. We're a small building. We want to cover our main hallway. We want to cover some of the exterior areas as well. Haven't really narrowed it down because I don't get to walk with the Chris people who install our cameras, but I would love to do that and make sure we can cover all those areas with an expert.
How is the lighting so far in those areas?
The lighting outside or inside we're talking about. Outside, I'm not sure as far as darkness. When I come in early in the morning and my colleague, Ms. Casey, comes in, Ms. Moody is pretty dark coming into the school building. And so we can use additional lighting for cameras or look at getting cameras that can see when it's dark outside.
That would be one, yeah, the other, thank you.
So you got a place in Amelia Pride Center, the other one in Ram Church, right, the same? Like
Yeah.
branch 1 and branch 2?
Yes, sir.
You need cameras in that Ram
Yes,
Church?
Amelia Pride, yes, sir, we need.
No.
I'm at Amelia Pride, yes, sir. We're right next to Dunbar.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Okay, Miss Casey Quisenberry. Hi, I'm Casey Quisenberry, the lead of the rodeo program. A lot of you probably don't know we exist. We're a small program, but we're located in the Amelia Pride building with the Restorative Suspension Center. It's reaching out to develop educational opportunities. It's an individual student alternative education plan program that provides students between the ages of 16 and 18 an alternative pathway to high school completion. So they work on obtaining their GED, career, and post-secondary, readiness. They have CTE, personal finance. So it provides students who might otherwise drop out of high school. It gives them an alternate path. Some of them like the smaller environment because it's just 2 teachers there and the students. A lot of the kids have anxiety. They cannot handle the big high schools, the big classes, hallways, and they do great when they come to us, a smaller environment. We build relationships. We are funded partially through grants. But one of my teacher's position, Mrs. Moody's, is CARES Act funding, and I really need to be able to have another teacher next year. Our enrollment is growing, and in order to hold the capacity that we've got this year, I can't do it alone, so I need another teacher. And we did not get a second teacher until the middle of 21-22 school year. So you can see our graduates increased because our enrollment was allowed to increase. We currently were at capacity at 21 students. We had a waiting list, but as we graduate, then we can take other students in. Currently this school year, we've had 9 graduates. We could possibly have 5 more by the end of the week. So that's pretty awesome to be this time of the year and get this many completed, but we also don't want them to stop with just their GED. We're trying to help them move on to their career pathway, college. Our first graduate of the school year is already enrolled in CVCC starting in January with mechatronics. And we want them to succeed beyond. So it also helps with the high school accreditation. It doesn't give them the full 100 points, but the high schools do get 75 points for each of our students.
when they graduate. And all of our students also earn a CTE credential, so that helps with the accreditation to the state. And they are counted on the daily membership numbers. But again, the important thing is we have 2 dedicated teachers currently, but one of those we need to try to find funding for to be able to keep her. And the rest of it's kind of just on there. A lot of you may not understand our program or know that we exist, but some information about it is here.
What is it, maybe Dr. Wadaka can help, what is the dollar amount of this grant? And is it sunsetting? Is it grant phasing out?
No, I'm sorry. We renew it every year, and it's usually the same amount for the 24,000 and some change.
So why that teacher's position is at risk when you have the same level funding?
Because only 14,000 of that goes towards my salary and 3,000 and something to my benefits. And the rest of it funds the program. We buy all of the vouchers for the kids to qualify into the program and all of the GED vouchers for them to test. So the other teacher position is all through the CARES Act funding.
Oh, okay.
That's the answer. Okay. I have a question. So you said you're currently at capacity of 21 students and you have 2 teachers. So how is it working? Do you have like 10 students per teacher in a room, or are students working on sort of a self-directed basis in some way? What is the student experience in terms of interaction with the teacher?
So we have 2 different time sessions for the groups.
Okay.
So one group comes 7:45 to 10:45. The other group comes in at 11:30 to 2:30. And then we have 10 to 11 at each time. We have one huge good-sized classroom, and then we do group instruction. But then we also break out into our second little classroom, and we'll have 2 groups depending on which subject. They have 4 core subjects that they're working on: science, social studies, language, and math. And they're all self-paced depending on what they come in scoring at and where they need to be to test. So then we kind of break them down individually throughout the day.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jalil, go ahead.
Is LCS matching the funds that you receive as the grant for?
They don't match, they just give us the rest of it, if I'm correct.
I'm sorry, I don't know. We'll learn more about it.
Okay.
And how do you receive children?
They're referred from the base high schools, from Heritage and Glass. They have to be at risk of dropping out, a year behind in credits. There's certain criteria, and then they also have to test in to qualify with a certain reading level and certain GED ready scores.
How much of their instruction is digital?
Oh, not much. No. We do buy an Essential Ed, which is a GED Academy, because it correlates perfectly with the GED, but not even a third of the day, probably a fourth of the day at the most is on computers.
They have the opportunity to work from home with some of that software too.
Yeah, it's not counted for attendance, but for homework, if they want to do it at home, then they have that software.
Thank you, appreciate you, everything you do. Remember, the superintendent will present the budget tonight, so we'll have this ongoing discussion for the weeks and months to come, so
right.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I can't see anybody else back there. Okay, great. I do want to mention, she's not going to come up and speak, but I do want to mention that Miss Lauren Calloway is also here from Turning Point Academy. You know, for those of you who don't know what Turning Point Academy is, that's our our juvenile detention center. But we like Turning Point Academy a little bit better. And Lauren works very closely with us as, again, children may go in for a short period of time or a longer period of time, and helping transition them back to their base school or whatever their educational program will be as well. So thank you for being here tonight as well. But the reason why I wanted to just take a pause and have the building leaders come and talk to you is we often get the question, what are you doing about the achievement gap? And you have to recognize that if these folks didn't do their work, that would be the achievement gap. We'd have more kids dropping out, more kids feeling hopeless, like they can't perform, more kids skipping school, skipping class because they don't feel like they can do it. By having multiple alternatives for children to learn, we are really impacting their success rate, as well as part of what, Ms. Jefferson talked about, the and beyond. It's not just good enough for us to graduate them and check mark Lynchburg City Schools did their job. We want to make sure that they have a sustainable life. So I wanted to take tonight, before we really start digging into all of our documents, to not forget about this part of the work that we do. And if you've heard anything, it's people intensive. Not many people came up here and said, well, I need a bunch of workbooks, I need a bunch of this, a bunch of that. It really is that caring staff that won't give up on a child, and sometimes when a child has already given up on him or herself. So just want to thank you for allowing us to do that. I want to thank you all for being here to support that program as well.
Continuing with the,
Yep. So let me get back to here. So you have a bunch of data, and last year I kind of took you through what all the data meant. Took you through what all of that data means. Now, as Dr. Gupta said, we take all of this information, we take what we hear from the public, obviously what we heard tonight. We have been having building meetings. Ms. Pugh and Dr. Wodeker has met with all the building leaders, department leaders, to put together a budget. On December 20th, I believe, the governor will give the initial budget numbers, and I say initial budget numbers because as you remember last year, those changed and then changed and then changed and then changed. So we'll build our budget based off of that. This is the start of a new biennium. In the past, save last year where we did have 2 sets of salary increases. The salary increase has generally been over a biennium, so we'll be planning for that. What we wanted to do tonight is make sure that you had all of the data that you may have requested, but definitely needed, but also provide an opportunity. You've heard us talk about our priorities through the Finance Committee meeting, and Dr. Wodeker gave you sort of a preview of that last meeting here. But now is the time to really talk about what the board priorities may be, or what you're thinking. You might not finalize that tonight, but we wanted to make sure that you had the data. It's hard to build priorities if you don't have data or don't understand some of the programming. Rather than going through each document, because some of those are repeat documents, I would much rather, if there's something in that file that you would like one of us to go over with you or answer questions, just so that you can make thoughtful decisions, we do it that way, because there's a lot of documents in here. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so for folks who are listening but also looking, in there you have historical budget information, you have our attendance and membership reports, both, well, I think you got Hutcherson and without Hutcherson pre-K. We have the demographic projections that we received from Cropper GIS, pupil-teacher ratios, employee counts, which is really great. We've put a lot of academic data in there with pre-K readiness, kindergarten benchmarks. We also thought it was important for you to see the AP courses, the CTE credentials, because that is something that we've had a lot of discussion about. Ongoing progress for IXL, which is our 2nd grade through 8th grade and some high school math and reading, math and literacy program that measures children's growth. We do have growth assessments there so that you can see that information, as well as longitudinal SOL data, completion reports for CTE, gifted participation, because we've talked about that, graduation, and then lastly, if you really want to dig into what does revenue look like when the state puts it out, you have access to the VDOE calc tool. You'll hear me say, we're waiting for the calc tool, we're waiting for the calc tool. And in there, it's a public document. In there, you can go and see, I gave you the current year, the projected year is not done, but you can see how revenue can be changed by ADM. We always use the projected ADM, and usually in the spring we come out higher than what the state projected, which gives us a little bit more money back. But out of those 1 through 19, since they were numbered. Are there any of those documents that you would like us to spend some time on right now?
Well, I went through them all very carefully and have, as I usually do, a lot of nitpicky questions. I'll try to focus on the things that are of more substance. In the one that's labeled LCS 2025 budget development, it had some numbers about how our teacher compensation compares to our regional partners. And there was one chart which, I don't know if I can find it on the fly here. That number is 16.
With the new teacher, 15 years, 30 years?
Yes, yeah, and I'd had an indication of how many people were losing in those categories, and it looked to me like our deficiency comparing ourselves to our regional partners is mostly in the mid-years. And so I'm wondering, we still are trying to improve our compensation packages for the sake of retaining our best people. So I'm wondering if we should be focusing in particular on those middle years, rather than just an across-the-board increase, if we ought to look at something that's tailored to bring those middle years up to a more competitive level, because that seems to be where we're leaking more. So that's just a thought, and if we approach it that way, it might be a little bit less expensive than doing an across-the-board increase.
The compensation, I was noticing the same thing. I was wondering at that career level, a tenure level, if these teachers are leaving for other schools or if they're leaving the industry. From my experience, from the things that I've read, people will leave for money more. They will leave the industry as a teacher to raise their salary. And obviously, I don't think you can get into teaching at this stage of our existence. You can't get into teaching expecting to make a lot of money. It's just the way it is. Not that they don't deserve it. It's just not the way it is. People will leave a school district because of the quality of or they'll leave a restaurant, or they'll leave any type of business to take another position of the same type due to their work environment. Now, does that mean discipline? Does that mean upper management, middle management? We need to find out if we are actually losing teachers in that bracket. Are we losing them after 30? What are those numbers? I'd like to see those numbers, and I'd like to see where they're going. If they are going to Campbell County, I don't see where they're losing people to take on the teachers that we're losing. So is it competitive to bring them into this situation, Lynchburg City? Are they being taken away because it's a more comfortable work environment? I'd like to know those. I would like to know that. Does not negate the idea that we should pay teachers more. They absolutely deserve it. Everybody in the school district deserves to be paid more. Period. But we're going to get level funding this year. $39,300,000. It's level. That's the number. So what are we going to do? How are we going to? The only thing that we have control over is improving the work environment. We don't have control over the money. As much as we should and want to give teachers more, we don't have it. So let's look at what else we can do and we can have control over. I'd like to have that data also. That's what I'm asking for.
So if I'm understanding you want more information about the reasons that people are leaving and where they're going.
Yeah. If they're leaving to get into business so they can make $100,000, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
If they're leaving to go to another school district, I think we need to look at other factors other than money.
Dr. Carter, then Mrs. Lowry, if you want. Dr. Carter.
I also was looking at that at the, how Dr. Day was looking at that. Now, is that 15, is that a 15 to so many years, or that's just pretty much the 15th year, or is there a range?
That's the salary at that 15th year.
Well, I know that we have had, there were several years where people in a certain category were promised increases. And it was forever that they were just pushed off, just like some of the CIP projects. They were just pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, and where that gap became so far that they really were making less money than they did when they, years ago. And I know Ms. Allen always talks about that. And she was one of the ones. And Ms. Chanel, they were in like that 26-year bracket, and they were promised a certain, do you remember that, Dr. Gupta? They were promised a certain bump, a huge bump, and they never received it. But saying all of that, yes, I think we really were intentional in looking at that group several years ago. Well, not so much the 15, but the 20, 25, 26-year period that had been here and had been promised that we're going to do increases. But also, we do get feedback as to why the teachers are leaving on our monthly reports. But if they say retirement, that's what we have to go by. We go by retirement. I don't know how else we can, or sometimes they may say they're moving out of the area, but a lot say retirement and don't specify why or any additional information.
So, Ms.
Coming back. I'm just telling you I'm coming back.
Yeah, Ms. Shepherd, and prior to that, the former director also provided exit survey data, and it's self-reported, so we don't follow them to see if they told us, or we don't fact-check their numbers if they say, you know, they're receiving X, Y, Z. So we do have that information as reported as to where folks say that when they're leaving. We also have where we're getting them from. So, and you know, we've hired a decent amount of folks from the counties as well. So I would be, in addition to your question as to where they go, I wonder where are they coming from, and are we just seeing a transition in that? To go back to your point really quickly, and just for historical record, because as I look around, just you two that were here when I arrived. Prior to my arrival, if I'm getting this correct, pay tables were frozen. So they would just add a percent, but they were not stepping and moving, which may explain what you were talking about. And they might have been frozen. At least the people who were at the podium, Carl Luce, our LEA rep, for 11 years prior to that. That's not to say that they didn't get an increase, just that the pay tables themselves were frozen. That next year, when I joined LCS, the board was committed to unfreezing pay tables. So we did. We experienced a little bit of compression in some of the stuff that we did. We have subsequently fixed that. But for the 6 years, we have been working with those existing pay tables and putting that increase on there as well. So they get a step and an increase because they move down the table and the increase is on top. The teacher pay table specifically, and I encourage board members to really take a look at that. One of the things that was already in the teacher pay table is some differences between the steps. So you might see, if you go from step 1 to step 2, it might be a 1% increase, and it might be a 1% increase and a 1, then you see a 2, a 3, and somewhere in there are some nice increases that are probably about 6 and 7 and 8% built into the table. So whatever we do, when we add money on top of that, we're adding money on top of those changes in the step. So when you look at where our people are, that might explain some of that. So we did a lot of work to bring up the starting salary, remove compression at the beginning. Then we heard from the veteran staff, remember, and they are over the top on the salary guide, so there is no place for them to step. And typically, they would get whatever the percentage increase was. So the last 2 years, I believe, we did something about that in terms of giving over-the-top folks who are not on the guide a nice increase. So now we're looking at the middle group, somewhere between 15 years and 26 years, is what I'm hearing you talk about in terms of this. But it really is going to require us to look at the actual teacher guide because of the teacher pay table, because of the way those steps are broken down in that. And we can do it for the existing ones so you can see the percentages in between steps. If I'm not mistaken, most of the admin guides and the classified guides, if you move from step to step, it's either everybody's going 2% down that, or everybody's getting 1.44, or whatever that number is going down those particular guides. So that's just something mathematically to think about, or just to consider.
I think Ms. Lowry's waiting.
Ms. Lowry, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Two things, what Crystal was saying is, Dr. Edwards, I'm sorry, was saying. I was part of that group where we were frozen for 10 years. But the logic behind it was that it was during that time, I guess, in New Jersey, Christie, they were gonna have to get rid of teachers because they couldn't make a decision with the unions because it was just bad all over the United States. So we in Lynchburg decided to take a slight pay cut and freeze everything so no one would lose their job. So that we were told it would go back. It just took 10 years to do it. So that's one thing. The other thing is, for money's sake, I would like to see in what the sped teacher spoke about the Orton Gillingham training for all K through 5 teachers, because I think that will help close our learning gap. Instead of it just being for a certain tier, it's a great foundation for all of elementary, because I still use it, and I think it would just greatly help children. So they would go, their reading would become so much stronger.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Hold on, let other people speak.
Yes.
Ms. Jalil, go ahead.
How is the step guide that Dr. Edwards spoke about ever altered or edited?
I don't have experience down here in Virginia, and the step guide that we started with as the base was in existence when I arrived. But having worked in New Jersey and doing bargaining with different unions and having step guides, which that's not unusual that you may have what they call the sweet spot. Like, I'm waiting to get to year 10 because that's where the bubble is, where I might get a bigger percentage, or it might be year 15 or 20 you typically see. Those are complicated things to redo if you're going to redo and remove those bubbles, because what you don't want to do is, in effect, have somebody making less the next year than they would. But when I've done it in the past, it's been a collaborative team of outside folks who have taken a look at the step guides and given us, here are some options you can use. And because we did that through negotiation, the union also had to approve those guides.
Those, but these.
But these I have not worked with. I'm not sure how they arrived at this, but I can probably do some historical looking to see. But they were in existence for quite some time, at least, well, Ms. Lowry was here, so at least 10 years, because they were frozen.
Anybody who has not spoken yet? Mr. Andrews?
I don't have anything right now.
I was just going to ask, this chart that I referred to and that you have open in your binder there, that number that I was pointing at, that says we rank 4th among ourselves, Amherst, Bedford, and Campbell in the 15-year row. Now, that number, 51,747 for 15 years, how is that obtained? Because we've got multiple steps, right? Where is that number coming from? Is that one of the steps?
That's
a particular one?
Yeah, it's the one that says I've been teaching for 15 years, so
Okay.
that is the number. So there's probably a 14 and a 16.
And there's also people on a 9-month salary, people on a 10-month salary. So how does this number come from those?
This is probably the 10-month teacher.
The 10-month
teacher. Yes.
Okay, so it's not an average. It's one particular item pulled out of the
Yeah.
steps.
So what, and you can speak to it, but what we typically do is ask other divisions, can we look at your, like, our pay tables are our pay tables are posted on our website if
Yeah.
you're listening.
Yeah.
And some other divisions, they post theirs as well. So we just grab them and say, if I was a teacher, 10-month teacher working for 15 years,
Okay.
what would I make if I worked here, here, or here?
Okay, all right.
That doesn't include any stipends for additional degrees or anything else that a division, like we give stipends for additional degrees.
This is a regular classroom teacher that, you know, just on average, so that there's comparison between divisions.
Okay, okay.
You want to say something, Dr. Carter?
Yes, I was just interested in seeing the administrative comparison, because I know that some of the administrative staff, their positions or their salaries were frozen this year. Or they didn't, yeah, okay.
Only the deputies.
Okay, all right.
And myself, just the three of
so
us.
that's the-
Everybody else increased.
All right, okay.
Let me give you my wish list. As I mentioned last time, you know, we must be paying our hourly employees better than what we do right now. I understand level funding, but we got to put that out there, and Brother Andrews knows where I'm going. Last year, we aimed for $15. Now the living wage is $16.15. And I challenge this board to go up to $17, because a lot of our employees are working 2-3 jobs to put food on their table. And that is not good for us to make it happen day in, day out. So I challenge this board to look at least $17 an hour as we go through this budget cycle. There'll be some more exchanges in terms of difficult decisions we need to make, but that's number one priority. And Mr. Andrews, I pointed you last time, we were at 50,000, supposed to be at 50,000 last year.
1540.
Yes, sir, but for $2.6 million, we were left at only 47,000. So other challenge I have for this board is to see if we can go back and accomplish that goal of 50,000. There's no harm in setting goals up. I understand 39 million is the balanced funding or level funding, but as a board, we gotta do the best we can for the employees. We are here to speak for them. And I got you want to say something?
Well, I'm that, but I can wait, I wrote down some notes, so when you're done, it's gonna come out one way or the other.
Okay.
So please, you're on a roll. You must be butter, because you're on a roll.
Because, you know, last year we were very passionate about this 1550, which was Dr. Edwards' plan. And Dr. Carter has been pushing for 15 for God knows how many years. So, but the inflation is so high. I mean, I go to Kroger, buy milk and a little bit of couple of things, and my bill is to $30. And I said, look, man, what is going on here? Did you scam me for something? No. You count the number of items, it's the same thing. So if you give somebody a $2 increase, and a 40-hour a week is about $80, right? And a 50-week year is $4,000. You take 60% of that is $2,600. You know what I'm saying? Sure. So that comes out around $200 a month. $200 a month, the gas, the way the food prices are, it's not enough. So we got to take care of these people. They're working hard, they're taking care of our most precious asset. You are an asset manager, but this is the most precious asset, more than the bank account money you got or anything else. And anybody with kids can certify that. Any parent will give up everything for their child. So at least we can appreciate bus drivers, custodians, anybody who's working on hourly wage, plus our teachers, whether they switch shifts or not, but we got to be the best.
So you're looking at 1750.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the challenge I have. And I got this email and I.
50,000.
The sick days-
50,000, sorry, and that's $17.50. Apologize. 17.
Keeps going up.
If you make it 1750, that'll be
It's great,
wonderful.
it's great.
17.
He's gone 50 cents
17
more.
an hour, $50,000 a year, got it.
Somebody watching may say it's a pipe dream, Gupta, but so be it. We got to challenge ourselves that we truly believe in taking care of our people. And so we challenge our superintendent, we challenge our city council to meet our goals. Because last year I was in budget brews for the city manager, and they were asking for $23 an hour. It was at Diamond Hill Baptist Church. And I said, what's wrong our hourly employees have done where we were fighting only for $15 an hour? So the times have changed. Hourly wages have gone up quite a bit. The other thing on my wish list is we pay, and this is from a elementary school teacher, I'm not supposed to disclose names, we pay 110 sick days, maximum number of paid sick days upon retirement. And I was told Campbell County has 200 sick days. Could we look at that? But our retirees, because they have then given their life to the school district, so when you leave, we still love you and we care about you. Then the other thing was under 65 retirement. This teacher is asking, could we pay employee insurance premiums? Right now, we do a lot of freebies to where people are not giving their fair share in different school districts, right? So savings accomplished, but then you take care of your own, which is trying to do under 65 if you retire, be able to pay employee rate. I don't know if I'm correct in assuming, based on this email, they don't get the employee rate if you retire before 65. Dr. Warka, I cannot see without my glasses.
We don't cover insurance after you retire.
After you retire, yeah. So that was the other thing. And then this discussion came up in previous budgets over the top. There was a table, Dr. Edwards, last time. We went back and forth. The over top were getting the least increase in their salaries. And personally, to me, that's again something wrong. I've given 30 years of my life, and you're telling me you're going to give somebody else 5% and me only 1.8%. So where is the fairness in the system? So we got to take care of our veterans too, like we take care of our new ones. It has to be some fairness in the system. That's my wish list. I'm going to shut up and give the floor to.
I enjoy listening to you talk, sir. I'm going to put it up to like a gym membership for a family. You could have 5 people in the family, all going to different gyms, they all paying full, single memberships. Whereas if they can consolidate and agree, going to one particular gym, have the family plan. I've been getting emails about the situation with the transportation, the buses. Or maybe we're lacking people paying for a particular service of these people, these bus drivers. We want to raise their salary. Why don't we consolidate our fleet with the city and their transportation department? Think about it. It's a part-time job for those people, the bus drivers, and we might be able to increase. Some people are going to lose their jobs. That's unfortunate. There may be an aspect of attrition that can be accounted for this. First thing we do is consolidate our bus system with the city system. The next thing we should do is consolidate building and grounds with city building and grounds. Those are their buildings. They already have a workforce. They already have transportation. Human resource, we can consolidate that too. And we can also consolidate the finance department. Get it out from under this umbrella, consolidate it with the systems that are already in place. I don't know about legalities. I don't know if we need to talk to the city attorney about this, but as long as city council's on board with it, let's consolidate these things. The main reason for this group is educating the most important asset. Number one.
I agree, but I think there was a study done in 2010, I was told, where they looked at using the GLTC fleet for Lynchburg City School, and the board at that time decided to not to go with that option. Am I correct in the historical things I've been saying? Dr. Warka, you were on the city side at that time.
I wasn't here at that time, but
I was on the GLTC board at that time.
Okay.
Didn't make sense. And I'm not talking about using GLTC. I'm talking about the city fleet that the city operates, not GLTC. That is a separate corporation solely owned by the city. It's a different structure, and it's unionized. You don't want to do that. But they have operators within the city that are not always in a vehicle. And that, properly managed, can take advantage of running the buses. Needs to be considered. We want to consider it now, let's go through the numbers and get all the transportation data. That would be terrific. We're not going to do it tonight. I'm throwing out an idea. 4 ideas that could save several $1 million.
Synergy is a good idea, and last year, out of frustration, I have said that because you're paying $23 versus here we are fighting for $15 an hour. So you level all these hourly employees, the city employees, then, fairness in wages will come automatically. But you're right, we got to look for places to pay the people who are doing the work now, take care of them, not put them almost,
In poverty.
yes.
I agree.
Working poor. And I apologize if I'm misusing my term, but it breaks my heart. I met a custodian here in this admin building, so I asked the young man, I said, so are you going for dinner break? He said, no, she's gonna bring me dinner because I gotta do 2 jobs to pay bills, man. And that was very heartbreaking. It's a fact. And I'm not going to name Dr. Edwards, the person so that should not happen in a civilized society. That should not happen in an education system. That should not happen in city of Lynchburg. Where people are working all day to just put food on their table.
I agree with you.
This is
But we're
not a
talking in
Republican,
theory.
Democrat, socialist, liberal,
No.
conservative idea. That's human idea.
That's right.
It's human, and it is not acceptable personally to me. I don't know society-wise what it is, because nobody should be working 18, 19 hours to just put bare food on their table. And no family time at all.
Got my vote.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Mr. Gillian?
I'll just throw this out there. I had a crazy idea, never brought up, but it just reminded me with one of these testimonies up here, I think from the rodeo presentation. And that is that you could technically cross-train a teacher to be a bus driver, and then because you have funds slotted for bus drivers that aren't filled, pay that money to the teacher. Now, the rodeo presentation had 7:45 in the morning till 10 or 11 group, and then they had from that point on to 2:45 p.m. group. If that can be adjusted for a certain amount of teachers, maybe we only need a few, maybe a handful. Some of those teachers could make over $70,000 a year, just because you have a significant and you have a legitimate designation of the bus driver funds going to someone who's in-house, you cross-train to be a bus driver. And it's, I need more information to make that a real suggestion, but if you can think of anything, that would be my idea.
I want to throw to Dr. Edwards for any comments on what you have heard so far. And when Dr. Carter is raising her hand higher, you want to go before her? Go ahead.
I just want to say, when we talk about consolidation, especially we're talking about transportation, finance, human resources, there was another one I forgot. Building and grounds. What do you think is going to happen to the staff that are in those? They're going to be displaced by the city workers. I don't know what our focus is this year, just to have more people just look at us and just say, what are y'all doing? But we're right here at the holiday time, and we're gonna put this in people's minds that we're looking at consolidate. I want them to enjoy this season. We're not looking at any consolidation right now. I mean, people are emotionally, this is a hard time. This is a mentally challenging time, and then to put this, we're talking about at least 4 different departments that this will even just be working on their minds during this season. Do we want this?
Go ahead, Dr. Edwards.
I wanted to just add something for the record, and maybe I misheard it. When Mr. DePaul said that we were getting level funding, and I'm assuming that's your opinion, because we have not, City Council has not given us a budget. I have not presented a budget. We have not asked for a budget. So I just don't want anyone listening to assume that, and I also don't want to misrepresent City Council to assume that, Lynchburg City School Board said this is what they are giving us. 39 million is our current funding, but the budget process, I will present a budget, you all will work through it, we'll approve it and submit it to City Council, and then typically in March, I go to City Council along with many of you, we answer questions, and then the city works through what their revenue
what they will give us at that point. So for the public watching, I just don't want anyone to assume that that has already been determined, because it has not.
But if the city has the revenue to support Lynchburg City Schools in the manner in which it should be supported, and that's gonna benefit not only our students, but also our city, is there any reason why we can't present that argument to city council and make that request?
Yeah.
We do that every year. We present our argument.
Okay, but for some reason, it hasn't been heard consistently.
It has been presented.
No, it's been presented, but for some reason, it hasn't been heard consistently. Is there something we can do differently that's gonna cause us to be heard?
See, in the budget preparation, I think we should go with what we think will take to provide quality, top-notch education in the classroom. You know, whatever dollar amounts it takes, balanced funding, more than balanced funding, less than balanced funding, that should be the target goal driving the budget.
And I
then-
agree with that.
And then we go to the city council and deal with it as it.
This is the reason we need X amount of dollars. If we are going to create a city or maintain a city that's gonna be at this level that we all will benefit from and that we all want, then you have to vote in favor of helping us in that regard.
Okay, my point, I didn't come here with that number, not having had conversations. Okay? I came here with a number based on my understanding of conversations that I've had. That's important. I'm not gonna say these people guaranteed it. These are with conversations I've actually had. My suggestion is that the first thing we do is create a budget. I apologize, Dr. Edwards. First thing Dr. Edwards does should be to create a budget based on level funding. Number one. Sure, let's create a budget, let's create a wish list. And then have city council see the difference between what it should be and what they're going to afford with, what was going to be produced with level funding. Show the dichotomy of services and value. Extra work, of course it is. But if you have reasonable expectation that we're gonna get level funding, and that's in the wind, then we should address it.
Go ahead, Dr. Carter, then I had a question and you had something.
I think one of the speakers said today, and I should remember her name, is that it's for us to advocate for the amount we need. And we're not going to just say because we've heard in the wind that, or we heard, not in the wind, but we've actually heard from certain council people that we're gonna get this amount. It's for us to advocate for what we need for the students, for our employees, and as she said, then they can take care of the others through their votes. Because we need to look at what we need, what our priorities are, and what we're gonna do. It takes money and it takes resources to close this achievement gap, to make the changes that we need. So we need to advocate for that and make sure that everyone knows what we're advocating for. And if council wants to say no, well, then we'll come back and have to make the adjustment. But we need to advocate for what we need.
I agree with Dr. Carter 100%. We need to show what we need to have the top-notch schools.
And we've got the data to support that.
And
I
we
mean, we
also-
can say this county is paying this salary while we're only paying this. You know, we've got some data that supports asking for whatever funding we believe that we need.
I agree, and my point is to show the difference between what we need to have it as good as it can be, and also to show what it would look like if we didn't. That might be part of the advocacy that would help change a vote for funding. My opinion, I know it's extra work, but if you go and get it, if you go with the wish list and come back and have to do it anyways, what's the likelihood? Let's balance this out. What's the likelihood we're gonna get every penny for the wish list? And what's the likelihood we're gonna have level funding? Draw your own conclusions. I think it's gonna be over on this side over here, we're gonna get closer to level funding. That's my opinion, based on everything that I've heard. So my point is, do both. Come up with a price tag, show what it's gonna be like if we don't get the ideal situation.
Mrs. Lowry, you want to
Question.
Yeah.
Yes, I think one thing that would help in our convincing argument for our school system, as a new school board member, all the good things I've seen, like today I was at Hutcherson, and the needs that they have there, and the great faculty and staff they have there. Talk about what we have. I've been telling Amy and the others, we need to talk about all the good things that are out there that LCS is already doing, because as a teacher, I didn't know it and I've been learning it. So if we let city council know we have these programs and this program, the restorative, we've got this, the kids are getting through CTE, they're growing, it's working. And if our budget's cut, then you cut the legs out from under us, and they are our future. And it's their future. They'll be the future city council as well. So I think we should also make sure we lead with what we are doing that is really working, and how the children are benefiting, being prepared for school from pre-K on, and then for life after school.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Day.
Nice, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to try to address several things that have been said. I hope I can remember them all. So in response to the idea of doing some consolidation, I doubt whether that's something we could do this budget cycle, because that would take some study and real investigation, talking to people on the other side to just work out what it would actually be possible.
I'm looking down
Right.
the road. I didn't expect it for this budget cycle.
That's fine, that's fine. Also, I think we're talking about this, as we should, from two aspects. One is what we believe we need to have the kind of quality educational program that we want, and what we think is realistic to expect to obtain in terms of funding from city council. And those two numbers don't agree. All right? So whether we go with the number that we think we need or the number we think they're gonna fund, that's a political decision. How do we approach city council to be convincing? And your suggestion is do both, so that, look, if it's level funding, here's what it's gonna look like. We're gonna have to X this, we're gonna have to X that. This program can't grow anymore. They'll need to see.
They need to see.
The consequences of that decision alongside how we would like it to be. And so although it does take a bit of work to prepare two scenarios like that, perhaps that would be more convincing. In the past, we have gone to them and say, here's what we think we need to do a quality program. And it hasn't succeeded in convincing them very well. So I think we do need to present ourselves differently than we have in the past, because the past approach has not been that successful. Now, I've spent a little time playing with some of the numerical values that were in the various information, particularly our budget history, to try to see, just based on our budget history, not looking at all the particular needs, just how have we been funded from one year to the next since 2019, which is the range of data that was in the packet of information we have. And according to my calculations, on average, our operating budget has grown about 2.3% per year. Some years it's gone up and down, but over that period, from 2019 to 2024, that's been about the average annual growth rate. So based on that, if our budget was to continue to grow from this year to next with a 2.3% increase, that would give us a total operating budget of 112 million. Right now, we're at about 109 million, right? So what does that mean? I'm just saying that's the number that would be sort of consistent with the past history. And what about the city's contribution to our budget? It's been the dollar amount that the city has given us has been somewhat flat compared to the city's overall revenue. If you look at how much the city's revenue has increased or decreased by a percentage each year, and compare that to how their contribution to us has gone up or down each year, our revenue has varied much less than theirs has varied. It's relatively flat. It's not constant, but it's relatively flat, and on the order of, well, in 2019, it was about 39% of our operating budget, and currently it's about 36%, according to my calculations. So if I took my estimate of 112 million and took 36% of that to get a rough guess or extrapolation of what the city's contribution to our budget would be, I come up with 40.2 million. So what do those numbers mean? I'm just saying that's what it would look like if the trends continued into next fiscal year based on the history. Now, can we expect that? Everything we're being told from the unnamed people who you've spoken to, what we heard at the VSBA convention, is it's going to be a very difficult budget year. We can't expect a lot of new revenue. At least that's what I keep hearing from multiple sources. So that's probably ambitious. Now, again, that's not looking at what our needs are. That's just looking at what would appear to be reasonable numbers. And it might be that that's the perspective that City Council takes, is not what our needs are. They haven't been too responsive to that in the past. So I'm suggesting that as we think about what our needs are and what that looks like in a budget, we need to also think about how that number is going to compare with what City Council members might be expecting to provide for us. And we need to realize that those are going to be different. How do we sell ourselves? Well, that's the big question. But I think we need to think about both aspects of it, and I think that's what Mr. DePaul is saying. We need to see both ends of this. What we need, what's realistic to expect. And we need to have both of those in mind.
I'm coming to, let me just add on to what you're saying. Based on the tables provided by Dr. Wadaka, Lynchburg City contributes about 25% of the local taxes to LCS. 25%, right?
Well, my point was that it was declining. That was my intent.
So, but it's gone down from
28% now to 23.5%.
And you compare that to Bedford County, how much it is? 44% to 41%. So, and then Campbell County is 44% of the local taxes collected. So if you look at Lynchburg City, there's a gap of about 15 plus minus % in terms of percentage of tax revenue coming for K through 12 education. So I wanted to add to that thing, Dr. Carter, go ahead.
I'm just listening to the words like wish list and believe we need. When I heard the little guy, David, talk about the LVA, Lynchburg Virtual Academy, which I would have been happy to be a member of. When I was going to school, I would have loved to have done that. But we need to make sure how we're approaching this budget. I don't want to use it, say, wish list, and we're looking at slots in it. No, let's use words. I mean, these are students that count on, he's talked about how he counted on the Lynchburg Virtual Academy and the mother and the pastor or minister that came to talk about how his son struggled, but now he is able to learn. So I don't want to use a wish list. It's just like you're just grabbing, but these are needs that our students have identified that want.
So I agree with you. We need to be
Yes.
careful about the language we use.
And the other thing is how we approach it. I've been here, this is my 9th year. It doesn't matter how you approach it. We've approached it and they said, oh, don't use the, I forgot what the terminology was used, that we were just playing with the numbers. So then we started doing a narrative. It doesn't matter how you approach it. But what we need to do is make sure that how is this budget, how are we going to do this ourselves?
I use the word wish list, but it has nothing to do with Virtual Academy. That's my wish list. Because since we are offering $15 an hour, I wish we offered $17 an hour. So that's my internal wish, that the LCS will have a minimum of $17 an hour. That's not undermining anybody or minimizing their effort. It's the appreciation of the work they do day in, day out for our kids. Mr. DePaul.
Two things. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Wordsmithing is not my strong suit unless I've given a little more time to think about it. But two things. The 25% budget real estate allocation in Lynchburg compared to the 40-ish in the counties, Lynchburg City does provide more services than the counties provide, period. So there is a difference there. We do have an aspect of a poverty, greater poverty in the city because we have more services. We got a bus system that can get people from place to place who don't have cars. They don't have it in the county. That's number one. Number two, about word crafting. When I first taught, when I first was out of college, I remember my master teacher, Mrs. Katera. She said, here, there's a blank piece of paper. She goes, that's your wish list. Write down the materials you need for the upcoming year. So I wrote down a few things and it came up short. She goes, oh, no. You need to write down more. I said, I don't need any more. She goes, you need to write down more. Otherwise, we won't get it next year. So that was my wish list. I had to write down all these different things for supplies for my classroom. I didn't know any better. I was a new teacher. But again, she used the term wish list. That's ingrained in me. I've heard other budgets come through where they say, well, yeah, what's your wish list? Yeah, it could be word crafted better, and I'll leave that up to you all, especially Dr. Carter. Yeah, we could word craft it. We need to work on it, but again, we need to work on a presentation, and that's the thing I'm bringing to the table here. Word craft it however you want.
Today's the very first beginning conversation, so it's happening in right direction. I think you got information from everybody, right, what they think need to be done. The next step will be when we come back, January 9th, you'll be making a presentation to the board.
Yeah, we'll start.
And in between, if you think of any questions, feel free to email, or how would you like the communication to be between now and January 9th?
Verbally email or I'll call you. May I?
Go ahead.
Say something too? Because I did say we are waiting for the governor's, obviously that part of the revenue which is December 20th, while we're on break. I do want to say, and let me first say I appreciate everyone sharing their philosophy, and just I think Dr. Sinha said, or maybe it was you, Dr. Day, talked about personalities and how people approach a task is very important. Those of us who teach understand whenever we're doing something with our children, we look at how do these kids approach the task, and each child is different. And if we go with every child by name and by need, as a teacher, we know that we differentiate. So I appreciate at least hearing how you're thinking about the budget and what your priorities are. And I hope that you would appreciate hearing how I think about it and what my priorities are in terms of how I do it. And when I think about the budget, I think about it from an educator lens, from a classroom. And if I look in my classroom and someone gave me data on my kids, and I just looked and I have Tina over here and Amy over here and Reed over here, and Tina's data doesn't look so hot, doesn't look like she's going past the SOL. It's August, and I'm planning for what I'm going to do with Tina. Tina still deserves my ultimate go hard plan for Tina. I can't make a decision based on, well, it looks like it's probably very likely that she's not going to succeed. I, as an educator, owe it to Tina to do my very best, give her my very best every single day, plan for her success, not her it looks like, right? And I think we want that of all of our children. So when I'm developing the budget, I do not ask staff to give me a list of wishes, because we know that doesn't work. But I do ask staff to give me a list of needs. Yeah. And what do you need so that you can look at your students and say, I have the tools to get this one, to make this one, to give them my all every day. I'm showing up every day. The folks that spoke tonight, I don't think you heard anything too wishy in there. I mean, even with we want more cameras, it was kind of small and measured, and there was a why. It wasn't like we want a fleet of this and that, and none of my staff do that. They understand the value of the dollar today.
And I will say your administrative staff, if you go back and look at last year's budget, one of the reasons why we were able to achieve 1547 is this division collectively, when you look at the administrators down and starting with these two who took a pay freeze, the higher increases were at the lower end and at the teacher end. But if you really look at that admin pay table, you didn't get the 5%. They said, you know what, it's important to us to have a fully staffed building. It's important to us to have teachers who have the tools that they need. So it wasn't everybody got 5% or some people got way, way more and some people got less. That's the philosophy that we're talking about with building a budget. It really is based on the needs of the kids, the needs of the building. The building administrators do it based on the needs of their staff and families, and that's what we try to do here. So that's what you're going to get. So I don't want to get to the point and go, why didn't you give me a budget that was X number? I'm going to give you a budget that reflects what kids and staff need and the priorities for our division. I will also say, I think did you calculate that it increased 2% each?
2.3, I think was the number I gave.
And I want you to consider that. If the budget is going up 2.3%, but the governor is giving raises of 4% and 5%, we're already at a deficit, right? So how are we making that work? And kudos to this team, because this team in the last 5 years, our budget, our contribution from city has gone down, but we have given increases every single year. And that's because we have tightened the belt, found this, got rid of this, did this more efficiently, and done some things in these last couple budget cycles to say it's really important to keep pace with, we're not keeping pace with inflation, but at least keep pace with the salary increases that the governor or that the General Assembly is approving, and we want to continue to do that. So while we're looking at a 2% overall increase, and there's a suggestion that there may be level funding, on December 20th, if it is stated that, hey, we're going to do a 4% increase, and I don't know the number, so I'll just say 4. Remember, that money from the state is just for SOQ funded positions. It no way fills the bucket for all of our staff. It doesn't cover staff who are in grants as well. That is something for us to consider. The other thing that I just want to get out there is there's been conversation about our enrollment and our enrollment declining. And what I really would like to look at is over the years as our enrollment has declined, not a lot, but has declined, what has state funding been? It has not declined. As a matter of fact, the state funding is going up, even with our enrollment. The state contribution, because they also see that we do need additional funding for mental health services and some of the things that we are doing. So I just want to point those things out that, yes, things cost more, services cost more. Working with our children is a little more challenging. You all are, especially the Behavior Discipline Committee, you see the data of what our teachers are dealing with on a daily basis. They need the help. So the budget that you're going to get from us is called the High Quality Classroom Plan, which means what can we put forward so that the teacher in the room, one, has a high quality classroom, which means all of the needs are being met, whether that's behavioral needs, social emotional needs, transportation needs, but anything that's going to detract my focus from doing my absolute best with my kids, those are the things that we're trying to mitigate right now and make sure we have that high quality plan.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. I think we had a robust discussion. We can move on. I just wanted to make one final comment. If I'm making $15 an hour, a 5% increase will give me only $1,500 increase. If I'm making $100,000 a year, 5% increase will give me $5,000. And so I'm not trying to be a socialist, trying to differentiate that, but we got to keep that in mind. So when somebody's making $15 an hour, and when you give them a 5% increase, it's not the same as somebody's making $100,000 and getting a 5% increase. So there's an inequity there. But let's move on. We'll continue this discussion going forward. Thank you, Mr. Sorensen, Dr. Vodka, and Dr. Edwards, and Ms. Pugh. Next one is item H3, Dick's Sporting Good. Do I have a motion to move forward with that grant approval?
Yes, I wrote to all the board members earlier today. I'm trying to get that back up here.
Let's make a motion and then we come back and discuss.
I move that we proceed to adopt that grant or accept that grant.
Yes, that was the, so what I was going to move is that we rescind the vote on the motion that was made at the previous meeting. The motion was made by Dr. Carter. We voted, and the motion was to approve the grant. We voted against that. I'm now moving that we rescind that vote, which means the motion is back on the floor for further discussion.
So do we need a vote on the rescind or just?
Yes, we need to vote on the
second.
rescind.
All right. Second, is there any discussion on rescind? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll to rescind that vote on?
Mr. Chilio,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes?
Dr. Gupta.
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mr. DePaul,
Yes.
Ms. Laurie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Do I have a motion to move forward with that grant?
Yes, and as the one who made that last motion, I think I'm entitled to be the first to speak. When we considered this motion, the motion on the floor is the one that you made last time, namely to accept the grant. We at that time voted not to accept it at that time because we wanted to be consistent in looking at criteria for accepting these grants, particularly after the discussion about the 50 Voices, 50 States grant. Now, since that time, a number of board members have offered suggestions about what those criteria might be. I think what Dr. Gupta wants is for the Finance Committee to be the one who kind of collects those and come up with a statement of what our sort of standard procedure will be. But I think we do have the information that answers virtually all of those questions in the materials that were afforded to us by Dr. Edwards. We have, we know that the grant was solicited by Dunbar Middle School staff in July. We know what the terms of the grants are. A grant is, we know that the grant funds are to be used solely for the Dunbar Middle School sports program, that there are no signage requirements. We know what the budget is. There's one item on the budget, $5,000 for volleyball equipment. So I think, although we don't have a new policy about this in place, I think in this case, all the issues that have been brought up for that policy have been addressed. And so I would like to propose, I'm ready to vote differently than I voted last time.
Let's make a motion.
So you want to,
Well, the motion is on the floor, I think.
No,
because-
there's no motion yet. The motion to
Well,
rescind was there.
And we never seconded the motion.
so I move that
The
we.
motion to rescind was seconded and we voted on it and
Yes.
it passed.
Not
What
the
you
motion
just
to approve.
described was not, was brought up, but was never seconded. So we're almost halfway, we're halfway there.
Okay, so you want the motion to be restated? Okay.
No, I want the motion to be seconded.
Did you make the motion? No,
Did you-
but nobody has made a motion.
Right,
Go
go
ahead and
ahead
make
and
a motion if you want to.
Okay, I move that we accept the grant.
Dr. Carter, second. So we got a motion and a second. Just wanted to make one point. We heard you, Ms. Preston, there'll be consistency and that process will start with Finance and Facilities Committee. So we have the consistent standards. All those questions you posed will be going back there and will be looked into detail. Right? Any other, Mr.
For clarification, it wasn't merely volleyball equipment. They're actually looking at a volleyball net system. And that's really what the grant read. And whether it came by afterwards or not, it's for a specific product.
Yeah.
And I went and I researched, and they can range from a couple thousand to several, tens of thousands.
That's what I meant by equipment. I didn't mean just balls or nets.
Oh, okay.
The system is part of what I meant by equipment.
And they need it as they come back from the Christmas break, this equipment is needed. So,
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Jalil,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes?
Dr. Gupta,
Yes.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mr. DePaul.
Yes.
Mrs. Mrs. Laurie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. School Policy Board discussion, policy EFG revisions. Dr. Edwards.
Turn it over to Dr. Whitaker.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards, and good evening, everyone. This is brought to you on behalf of the Operations Policy Committee. And we will bring more from that most recent policy committee at a later date, but there is a little bit more of a time component on this particular policy, and we wanted to bring that for your first view tonight, and hopefully at least we'll be able to vote for it in January. This is a school nutrition policy related to access to school meals. We are bringing this because we have a periodic 5-year review of the school nutrition program coming in February, and we need to make sure that our policies are in line with federal law and federal standards related to that program. In particular because we have the community eligibility program, which essentially means that students eat for free. But like any good intergovernmental program, we need to have policy that states that we will follow the rules, even if it doesn't really apply to us. And so what this says is that we will not go after students and make them do chores and those sorts of things if they owe debt. We don't do that, and we certainly would not ever do that. Certainly if at some point there was a debt issue, we would engage with a parent related to that as opposed to the student. These are good common sense things. Typically, because of the community eligibility program, there shouldn't be any debt anyway, but we do need to have this in policy. And certainly would take any questions that you may have. I'm here on behalf of Beth Morris, who has had a previously planned staff dinner tonight for the holidays, and so I'm filling in for her to the best extent that I can.
Making a motion to,
Yes, I move that we approve the,
making it an action item.
Yes.
And approval.
yes, we can, is that
So
possible?
the motion is to make it an action item?
Yes, the motion is to make it an action.
I second that motion. Any discussion on making an action item? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now it's an action item. Is there a motion to approve it? Do you need a motion to approve it?
I move that
Yeah.
we approve the policy.
I'll follow I'll second
Yeah.
that motion.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So apparently there are students who are expected to pay for their meals. Is that correct?
So no student is expected to pay for meals. So this is why, this is what I'm saying about we have to have this policy even though it doesn't really necessarily apply to our.
There's language here who says a student who cannot pay for a meal
That's-
at
that's
school
what
or
it's
who
saying.
owes a school meal debt.
That's my point, is that that's what the policy, that's what the federal standard says that we have to write. If at some point somebody had student debt, then that's what we would follow, but we don't have that issue.
If we lose our community eligibility and we no longer can offer meals for free to all students, this
Then it
is
would have to
this is
change.
what we would have to follow.
Okay.
And all divisions have to have
Okay,
this.
so this statement has to be in there, even though in our case, there are no students who are being
Exactly.
charged for the meals. I understand now. Thank you for clarifying that.
Wonderful. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The informational item, Lynchburg City Schools will be closed winter break December 18th through January 2nd. Academic Success Committee meeting January 9th at 3:30 p.m. Next school board meeting Tuesday, January 9th at 5 p.m. right here in the school board room. Discipline Committee, Data Review Committee, January 11th at 4 p.m. Finance and Facilities, is Tuesday, January 16th at 3:30 p.m. Ad hoc Discipline and Policy Review Committee, January 23rd at 3:30 p.m. And next school board, it says work session, it should be the regular meeting on January, right? It says here January 30th.
That's the work session.
Work session.
Yeah, so work session is January 30th, but we have a regular school board meeting before that, right?
January 9th.
January 9th.
January 9th.
So just So that's the addendum, that we'll have a regular meeting on January 9th and a work session.
It's there, you read it.
Number 3, you read it.
You
Oh, read it? Okay, I'm going too fast, it means.
Got excited.
I'm so excited to go home right
I
now.
know.
Thank you very much.
I have Dr. Owens waiting for me. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
I made a motion to adjourn.
The meeting is adjourned, thank you.